The Dent Slayer, Matt Boyette. Thank you so much for being here.
She's smooth, boy.
So this was, I think it was August of 2013, and that was my first year with my brother, Will Garcia, my brother, and we went to we did hail all season. Started in Atlanta, and just kind of migrated north throughout the season, and ended up in Canada. Ended up in Canada in August. So we went to a town called High River, and this town got a lot of hail, and they flooded. So it shut this town down because this had these rush. What do they call them?
Flash floods?
Flash floods.
Jinx.
Flash floods that just shuts the whole town down. A lot of businesses were flooded, and it was pretty devastating to the area. And they brought us into this Toyota dealership that got the hail damage, and we're repairing all the inventory. But it was it's just really small rural town, so not these huge dealerships like we know, but just a really small, and they didn't have any place to work for us or for us to work. So the mechanics would work in the service center during the day, and then they brought us in at night. And we had to work from 5 at night till 5 in the morning. And they just gave us a box of keys and said, see ya. And they locked up the dealership except for the service doors, which were automatic. You just kind of go up and down, hit the button. But it was really cold, and it was starting to get cold up in Canada. So, 5 at night till 5 in the morning I think we were there for 50 days straight. It was just kind of grueling. You don't really see a lot of daylight, but
Night shift,
yeah. And one night, the first week or two, it was all exciting and everybody's charged up, a lot of energy. But then it starts getting kind of dragging on, and the energy levels wearing down, and we're just everybody's quiet.
How many guys were on this job?
Just 3 of us.
Okay.
Were working a night shift. Other guys, there was some other guys working a day shift, outside in a tent or something. But we had to be at night for the lights and the power. So, so there was just 3 of us at night. Me, Will, and my brother inside. And I don't remember what time it was. Let's just say it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'd already had our coffee spike and our punk music real loud, and everybody's laughing and having fun, silly mode. And then we were all just kind of in the zone, tired work mode. And so we had been opening the door to bring cars in and out. And so I had my hood stand backed up against the wall, and there's a door, a side entry door behind me. And I'm just working on my hood, and all of a sudden this guy comes in behind me, busting in. He opens the door real fast. He's like, "Freeze, get on the ground." And we're like, ah. I mean, 3 in the morning, this no energy. We're all just kind of super tired. He busts in, "Get on the ground." And we all oh my gosh, freak out. And there was a cop who thought we were stealing or whatever, breaking in. And
no way.
We had to kind of walk him through "Hey, dude,
Did y'all get on the ground?
Yeah, it was all "Oh my gosh." And he was like, "What are y'all doing?" He pulled his gun. "What are y'all doing?" And we're like, "We're working on cars."
Open your eyes, buddy.
We're not stealing anything. But he had been seeing the door go up and down and cars going in and out, and thought something, sinister was going on. And then he came in, and he thought he was going to have his moment, his police moment, his big bust.
He already called the news.
Yeah, and it was just us working. But that scared the crap out of me, obviously, for various reasons. But yeah, that was an interesting job. We actually we were staying in Calgary, and we had about 40 to 50 minute drive commute every morning and back. And so we didn't really get to see a whole lot of daylight for 50 days.
Wow.
It was pretty grueling. And then as soon as you get home, from the job, it was 6 a.m., you have to go in and shut all the blinds in the hotel to try to sleep,
Oh, no.
So it was just...
It was an experience.
It was an experience, yeah. But that cop pulled his gun on me, "Get on the ground."
So he had a gun? And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all. Again, he thought it was the one.
Yeah.
After that 50 days, who was the most tan?
Probably Will.
Yes.
Will has that color. He's just that skin type that just holds that color. But me and my brother are kind of pasty.
More European descent.
Yeah.
Today's guest from all the way from Narragansett, Rhode Island, trained here with the Dent Slayer in March of 2023. He just finished his first full year on the Hail Trail. Married 22 years to the same woman, father of 2. It's self-employed since 2005, but a new Dent guy. Today's guest is Tony Shirley. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thanks for having me. It's always an interesting intro. You know, you try to put things into perspective. You hear that and you're thinking your timeline, your blueprint. You're trying to process all of that, and then you're like,
Have I done enough?
yeah, have I done enough? Thanks for the conviction.
Tell us about your family.
Where'd you grow up?
Ooh, those are two totally different broad questions. My wife, Ashley, met her right when I moved up to Massachusetts. She wouldn't leave me alone. It was love at first sight for her. So, and
You met her when you moved up there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And we were married at a very young age. She was 19. I was 22.
Mm-hmm.
Our firstborn, he was born in 2008. I was 28 years old. That was Ashton. And we had that name picked out like the day after we got married. And then Ansley came along, healthy, happy girl. She's 13 now. And a few weeks after her birth, vasectomy. And that's when the real fun started. So 2 healthy, happy kids. Ashton turned 16 this year. He graduated high school, bought a boat, bought a pickup.
He graduated 16?
He did.
Wow.
He did. Yeah.
That's what he did. Graduated, boom, boat, truck.
Yeah,
That's
in
what
that
he was-
order.
Yeah.
So, he bought the boat, and I said, listen, man, I'm tired of picking you up at night down at the dock. Figure something out. So then he got his pickup, and now he's officially driving by himself. 16.5 is when you're allowed to officially drive in Rhode Island. So, yeah, that freedom's amazing, but, it's one of those lives that, growing up here in Florida, close to the water, you want your kids to be able to afford that same lifestyle. And so when you look at your kids and you see how much opportunity they have in the water and you're watching their lifestyle, you're like, check. That's a good feeling as a dad, because it's one of those things, if you didn't grow up on or by the water, it's hard to explain to somebody that passion, that love, that commitment. There's people that you run into in life. I'm a surfer. I'm like, dude, you like surf holiday weekends, and if there's waves on a Saturday afternoon, like it takes a lot more than that. It's your whole life kind of revolves around that moving door. So, that's my family. I grew up in Mayport.
In the Mayport Village?
I don't even know what Mayport Village is. I'll tell you.
Like over right by the water in Mayport, or just like off Mayport Road?
Lord, no. I grew up across from Terry's Country Store.
Okay, we know where that is.
Captain Odie's.
Yes,
So,
still there.
it's interesting.
Captain, not Captain. It's not Captain, right? It's
Well,
Captain.
I've lived up
Captain.
behind
Captain?
behind
Captain.
enemy lines for too long, so I've lost that southern draw. But no, Mayport, people romanticize. I would love to live that close to the poles. Mayport was a totally different world back in the day. I mean, the only glory that they really had was the naval station, and then it was trailer parks, apartment complexes, and it was the Jacksonville commissary, the naval commissary. There was a Hardee's.
Yes,
There was a Rally's that was selling crap
the Hardee's is gone.
on Levee
You
Road.
knew that?
I didn't know that. Yeah, I actually.
There's a like a DIY car wash there now. I'm pretty sure about that. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I stopped going down that way in 2018.
So this is crazy. So Naval Station Mayport is right here where he's talking about, and then what happens by military bases is an interesting economy, right? Payday loans, buy here, pay here, car lots,
Strip clubs.
What am I missing here? Trailer parks.
Yeah.
Many of them.
Yeah. In that
Pawn shops.
Wherever there's a military base, that's there.
Yeah.
At least where I've been. And then, but it's right next to Atlantic Beach where you have $1 million houses, and it's, it's kind of been creeping. The expensive houses have been creeping into Mayport, but it is kind of a weird phenomenon.
And if I could kind of shine some light on what it used to be, when I was in 5th grade, there was this girl named Amanda. When I was 16, she was already prostituting up in Mayport Road.
Jeez.
No joke.
Wow.
Yeah, 16. So she was the same age. You saw her go from 16 and barefoot to 17 and pregnant to pimp after pimp, and then you stop seeing her.
Wow.
So it was like the Wild West of Mayport. You had the ferry down there and you had the naval station, or you just lived there. So as a kid, our escape was we had the water. We found this old pro-shaped surfboard in the trash, glassed fins. I think it had center fin and right fin. And then we acquired another one, and it was my brother and I on top of a beach cruiser. One would be pedaling and the other would be holding 2 surfboards, and we'd ride down Mayport Road.
On the handlebars or on pegs?
No, handlebars.
Okay.
And we would ride down Mayport Road, and we would have so many shortcuts through Selva Marina just to get to 10th Street and Atlantic Beach, which technically is 11th Street, where the old A&B Pier would have been on 10th. So, and that was our local surf spot. But
it's hard to find a parking spot there now.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, it was hard back in the day too.
They pay. You have to pay to park in Atlantic Beach now.
Welcome to my world. Up north.
Up north, yeah.
Everything is. You're talking like a $200 day for a family of 4. But you not only have to
just
park,
to be there.
Ridiculous.
You got to park, and then you got to pay to get on the beach.
What?
Yes.
Like you pay a fee?
Well, I don't because
you're a local.
We're residents.
Okay.
But people coming from bigger cities or out of state.
How do they stop you? Is there
There's
a
only
turnstile?
one access. No, it's a wall, and there's one access to get on. So what people wise up to do, if you're actually a waterman, you can go around down to the rocks, jump in and swim, or jump in and paddle, or whatever the options are. So you have this long stretch of sandy beach, but the majority of it is surf clubs and ritzy stuff, and then open to the public. There aren't many public beaches with sand on the Rhode Island coast. It's all rock, which is great for surfing, but for R&R, and not so awesome.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting world up there. I heard Jersey, and I've done some swimming events in Jersey. It's everything's accounted for there.
Wow.
It's almost like the Hawaiian Islands, in my opinion, where localism and then people just kick you out of the water. There's been times we've been surfing, and then the lifeguards show up and say, "Hey, you need to go somewhere else." I'm like, "No, the waves are breaking here." They're like, "Go down to that rock." I'm like, "There's no waves down there." And then they send out the lifeguards with the paddle boards and the jet ski patrol, and you're like, "All this just because I won't get out of the water?" Anyway, I'm not trying to villainize the North, but it's not live free or die, like they say.
It's not.
Not in Rhode Island, it's not. Not even in New Hampshire. New Hampshire has some of the best surf only on a 7-mile strip of coast.
Wow.
Yeah.
But New Hampshire is live free or die. That's their motto.
That's their motto.
Yeah. But that's not how they roll.
It's
not anymore.
Not in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. I highly doubt it. I'm not coining that phrase. I heard that somewhere else. But no, so I grew up in Mayport, Florida.
Okay.
I always tried to claim it as Atlantic Beach because we were right on the line, right? So there was a different lifestyle in Atlantic Beach than there was in Mayport. So I didn't go to Mayport Elementary. I actually went to Atlantic Beach Elementary.
Ooh,
so I was on that.
Very nice.
I was like that cusp,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
But last kid off the bus. And when I talk about poor, like dirt floor.
Literal?
No, I mean we had.
It was just dirty enough to where.
Yeah, and
Okay.
here in Jax, or I'm sorry, here in
Sand
Florida,
floor.
everything's sand.
Okay.
Everything's sand. So when you wore through the carpet, there's like a sand lot all the time. Dogs were infested with fleas. Yeah, it was pretty raunchy. So, yeah, Mayport was a different place. So I had the opportunity to go to Atlantic Beach Elementary, and then in middle school, entered into the magnet program, as we all know it here in Florida.
Yep.
Right, so I went out to Landon Middle School.
Okay.
Out into town.
I was hoping you were going to say you went to that Marine Institute.
That
in
would have been cool.
Mayport.
That
Marine
would have been
Science
cool.
Center.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't
I
think.
went on a field trip there. It was super cool.
Yeah, I think we all went on field trips there.
Yeah.
that was like
Man.
That was the place.
Landon.
Yeah, well,
Dang it, Tony.
So I was associated with music. That was kind of my out and my focus.
Okay.
And from there, that kind of filtered into going to Douglas Anderson School
Okay.
of Arts, right? And
Wow.
so, up in the north where my wife lived and grew up in the same small town, you try to put it into perspective, your graduating class at Fletcher would have been 1,200 kids. There's half of that in her entire high school, So proportionally,
Very small town.
lots of small towns, and each small town has their own municipality with their own school system, and it's crazy, And within that town, there's one gas station, 12 churches. It's a lot different, not as much volume as people, but up north, I think where I am and where I was, everything's accounted for, every square inch. There's no Lois and Clark. There's no Homestead Act. If you go and decide to sleep on the side of your car, you're on someone's property somehow, some way, And then if it's not, it's state land which owns. So there's all these hunting and fishing regulations that go with that. But it's a different world, Makes you kind of live on the edge of paranoia or responsibility, however you want to view it.
So, any other good stories from just growing up in Mayport?
Yeah, I mean, we had the opportunity to be close enough to the water. So I remember surfing quite a bit. And we just, like I said, we were poor. So I remember someone throwing out maybe a scuba dive suit, and we try to make our own wetsuit out of that. And we're not talking new age neoprene. We're talking old scuba
Not very
suit.
stretchy, like a body glove.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you start to stitch it together with dental floss. So
That's gangster.
you're basically, but our skills and ability were just, I mean, I remember those first waves where we actually were able to stand up or actually be able to start to ride the line. And unfortunately, we weren't immersed in the surf culture because we didn't go to school at the beach. We were going to Landon where people knew the beach exists, but on 3-day weekends.
Yeah.
And then in Douglas Anderson, I mean, yeah, I'm sure people surfed there too, but most of the dudes that surfed were from Orange Park. You're like, let's be real with each other.
What instrument did you play?
Violin,
Wow.
13 years.
Do you still?
No,
You hate it?
I don't hate it. I think
Just don't do it.
music was my out. And it was hard for me back then to compartmentalize music, and so it was a very physically demanding instrument, very physically demanding, very cutthroat, and so you're participating in all these orchestral events with kids where their parents are just paying for private lessons, and they're virtuosos and they're just prodigies, and you're just struggling to keep up with the bus. So I kind of want to say I aged out, did the best that I could. I had a pretty good work ethic for it, but there was a lot of technical ability that was just, I didn't learn the right ways. So
Could you pick it up and play it now?
Why do you have a violin?
No.
in the backwards? It's one of those things, probably, if you asked any professional skateboarder that hasn't skated in 20, 30 years, he could do a trick and be like, that is amazing, but it isn't where he was.
Yeah.
Right? So probably play something to blow your mind, but you wouldn't understand the intonation or the placement and all these other things. So
Will that cross over to a fiddle?
it does.
Yeah.
Very similar. It's just a style of music. Classical guitar versus electric. Same instrument, but just how you finagle certain different things. But yeah, so
Did you ever do any kind of like commercial fishing growing up?
I took a small stint on a shrimp boat one time.
Okay.
Have you heard this story before? Stop me if you've heard this one.
Not from you. I've heard.
Did you hear it from my brother?
Yes.
Because we may have to fact check this, and I can give exact time, place,
You
and
don't
dates.
you don't have to.
We had this opportunity. So we were always looking for opportunities to not be home. And we had I don't know if she was a guidance counselor or she wasn't a custodian. She had some instrumental part at the school, and her husband owned a shrimp boat. And I think he approached my brother or myself or somebody and said, hey, y'all want to work the summer? And we're like, what does that look like? Well, we go out, we fish. Well, how long? He's like, all summer. I said, do we have to go home? Oh, you can live on the boat. I'm like, sign us up. So we went out there with like your quintessential homesteaders, bag of clothes and a pillowcase and, a couple pairs of baggies. And by the end of the summer, from the time we got out of school to the time, maybe a week before we were supposed to go back to school, we never went home once.
Baggies means like
Board
bathing
shorts.
suit.
Board shorts. I think there's like some imaginary line between
there's people-
Indiana and
A lot of people don't know what that means. So describe this boat.
the boat was.
If someone's never seen a shrimp boat before,
Right. It's a diesel pusher. They're not meant for speed. It's power and it's dirty, crusty.
wooden boat.
No, I think they're mostly not fiber hull or metal hull. Very wide beam, huge outriggers that are erect when they're not trolling. And then there's these, I don't know, it's 45-foot outriggers that hydraulically or pulley wire cable lay out horizontal, parallel with the water. And that's what gives you the leverage or the stability. And then these nets just drag for miles on end. The boat's typically crusted in bird crap. The back,
Smells good.
The back from the helm, wherever the diesel engine might be in the exhaust, is all stained black from the exhaust. And anytime you're on the deck, you get this nauseating, still to this day I can taste it, of diesel exhaust. Like sometimes unburnt fuel, these things are probably. And yeah, so you work like a dog in the sun. I mean, things are probably way more technical now. They're probably created some shade. This was not the case. I mean, after a full summer, we were leather skin. Like, you could see tan line. Oh, it was like you were wearing white shorts, from your butt to your knees, and everything else was just brown. Like
What were you wearing on your feet when you would work?
boots?
Yeah, Mayport Nikes.
Mayport Nikes. You got that
Was
right.
it would explain what Mayport Nikes is?
They're, I guess, like a fishing sole, non-slip sole, a boot, and you traditionally, if you really want to look cool, you kind of fold them over so they don't rub the skin off, the hair and the skin off your thigh or shins. Your socks go up just above them.
Just white rubber boots.
Not stylish like the extra ones that they make these days that kind of look like Vans. These were just white, big old Mickey Mouse things.
Yeah.
And back in the day, there were dudes in Mayport that did not own a pair of shoes. They had their Mayport Nikes and they had flip-flops. That was it. And I thought that was an awesome lifestyle. You're working with these dudes that they were like outlaws. You're cowboys of the sea. And I'm like, this is sick. So
Okay, so you're on this boat. You're working.
we work relentlessly.
When the sun up to sun down? Are you working at night?
No, you work probably 20 hours of the day. You get cat naps when you can. So if the shrimp was good, then you just keep dragging, keep dumping. If the fishing isn't good, you're trying to find other schools or It has this huge net that drags out and these chains on the bottom. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this was a long time ago, and I was 15, so my mind could only comprehend so much.
Yeah. So the chains are weighing it down?
The chains were actually dragging on the ground to kick up the shrimp, and then it would pull.
I didn't know it went all the way to the ground.
Yeah. So you're not just in a water column, you're off the bottom of the ground.
Whoa.
But in the sense, you might want to censor this out, you're catching sea turtle, you're catching like gecko lizards.
Whatever's in the way.
Whatever's in the way. So, and then you pick out through these Volkswagen-sized bags that just, and you're just all day, all night, picking out shrimp, throwing them in buckets, picking out shrimp, throwing them in buckets. And see, the other deckhand, it was a full-grown man, the captain, and then my brother and I. That was it. He's got the stool. We don't have stools. So we're just like
bent over.
Yeah, bent over, hunched over. There's no comfortable position. You're just trying to find the least of the uncomfortable. Fish are slapping up. Sometimes jellyfish larvae sticking to you. You're just stinging. You're sunburnt. You're just slimy. You're not showering. You got salt water to bathe in.
Were you like having a good time, or were
This
you
was
like
the
miserable?
life.
Okay,
This
you were
was the
loving
life.
it. Okay.
Man, no, I'm making it sound as if like this was torture, like this was a hell boat. No, this was the life, man. You know, the other deckhand, he was like a prankster, so he'd write something on my brother's face, "Don't tell your brother," you know, and I'm like, oh, but he wrote it on my face too, "Don't tell him." And there's no mirrors on the boat, you know, so it was a great experience, and I love it to the point of every time you're casting off the fish that didn't have shrimp, the byproduct is 90% dead. You create this feeding frenzy of black tip sharks that could be 250 yards in any angle. Feeding frenzy, like water is boiling. So you just don't get to see sights like that.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people have ever picked up a 3-foot diameter sea turtle and cannonballed it in the water?
I have not.
Yeah. How many people know how to effectively pick up a stingray? Like a big stingray. You right behind the eyes, it has 2 sockets, and you pick it up like this. It's a priceless. If somebody called me and said, "How old's your son?" I said, "You got a spot on a shrimp boat? I'll send him right down." It's an amazing experience, and it was kind of that voyage into adulthood as I knew it.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience, and unfortunately, the summer came to an end.
Were you before that? Did you feel like you had like a good work ethic before that, or did you learn it there, or what?
I did anything I could not to be at home, whatever it took. You know, if there were yards to cut out, and it was push mower, a little 21-inch with 3 wheels, I'll cut the grass. It wasn't. A lot of people would say we were adventurous as kids. We would only go outside. I just didn't want to be inside. You know, and in Florida in the summer, man, it's leaping lizards.
Yeah.
You know, I was out there, and so being on the shrimp boat and having a purpose was monumental. Not only just having a purpose, but feeling as if I was appreciated
and contributing to
was a great experience. So, long story short, end of the summer comes, and that's the last time we offloaded. Everything's done, cleaned up. Captain comes up like, "Thanks so much for your help. How much y'all think you made?" Like, "Captain, whatever's fair." You know.
This is like one-time payment at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
You haven't been paid.
No. Which I'm like, "Hey, dude, we're about to get paid. We're about to clean up." Right? So, I mean, if you had to put things into perspective, you know, let's just relatively say 1994, 11 grand a month is what these guys were making in prime time shrimping season.
Like the boat was?
No, the take home.
Oh, the crew?
Yeah, maybe even more. That's what I was kind of
But they're
understood.
only able to work for a few months?
It's like anything, it's seasonal.
Yeah.
And then you move into a different style of shrimp, or you have to chase it to different waters. Again, technical ability for what I understood at the time is very vague. So I don't want the EPOs knocking on my door trying to say I quoted some nonsense. But this is what I attributed to. So
several months.
yeah, at least 3.
Yeah.
At least 3.
So you 30 grand.
They fed us. they housed us. I mean, we had these bunks on the bed. I'm sorry, bunks on the boat. They weren't comfortable, but it was better than sleeping on a wet. It wasn't luxurious at any point or any.
Yeah.
So yeah, long story short, Captain disappears. My brother and I, we are stoked, and he comes back, with his Mayport Nikes, no shirt on, big pot belly, or maybe he had a shirt and it was all holed out, and he's like, "Here you go." And I will never forget like that envelope. It was like, it's not empty. I said to my brother, "Don't empty that. I'm sorry, don't open that. Just put it in his pocket." And I remember getting back to the dock, like, I don't know what the feelings were. It wasn't disappointment. It was almost like, you got me. So we split it 50-50. It was $100.
100 each?
No, we split it $100, 50-50. And so...
For like 2 months of work.
3.
3 months of work.
Yeah. We were talking...
Oh my...
Round the clock.
Goodness.
Yeah, round the clock. But,
No.
One of the... that is probably one of the most amazing things. One of them that really ever happened to me. Because,
Please explain.
well, I
There's
understood
some lessons.
no one's really going to value you. You're never appreciated for what you have done, only what you're willing to do. And in essence, would you work that hard again for $100? Absolutely. And I would do it because he's not going to break me. I'll work for free. You can keep your $100. I will work circles around you and I'll do it for free. It's a weird concept, right? So, we were having this conversation, Matt and I, about my brother, thinks it's a different story. And long story short, it was 1994, 1995, one of those summers. And I remember I bought 2 shirts from Aqua East. I bought a Wisnit shirt and one of the first Volcom t-shirts.
With your 50.
With my 50. And tell you what, man, I was styling. I wore those shirts out, right? Because that was the first time I ever bought myself some clothes. Everything else was just like, beach shops, like 10 for $10. And large. I was like a 120-pound 5'2" kid.
Yeah.
It's like a... But anyway,
Wow.
yeah. I always think back to those experiences, and I think that was our first taste of the water and the water lifestyle. My brother continued to go back onto the shrimp boat and work and make really, really good money and live that lifestyle. Big lifted trucks and 44s. And
So is that a tradition where like your first year they punk you like that?
No. I think that was just cheap labor. And I don't.
Yeah. They thought they in their mind, y'all were at summer camp and you owed them money.
Probably. It's kind of like PDR training. But don't forget to tip your waitress. No, in short, it was a great experience. I would do it all over again. I wouldn't change a thing. But summer came to an end. We go back to school, and life goes on. But it wasn't too short after that. Like 16, I was gone. I wasn't at home anymore. I left.
I think that is impactful for you because you gain something besides just money. Like people value all kinds of things, and some people only value the dollar. But for you, the experience was the value. The money was just a byproduct or not of the experience that helped probably shape you as a man. Like you said, that was your coming of age or your intro to manhood, and I'm sure that was profound in shaping you. I mean, and it's just what you value most.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly too, like that was my first opportunity that I can remember, and I think we'll go into this later in the conversation. That was the first opportunity that I actually ever saw men working, and we weren't treated as 14 and 15-year-old kids. We were treated as men. Like, you better pull those nets. Listen, I'm done with my stack. going to bed, and you're out there another 2 hours. You're about to go to bed, and they pull up the nets and drop them again. And the interesting thing about that is people are like, you just got to grind through it. Well, in theory, you're doing the same amount of labor and work if you're catching fish or if you're not catching fish. So the equation is you're doing the same amount of physical labor and making money, or you're doing the same amount of physical labor and not making money. And you cannot dictate either one. So I honestly think that's a beautiful thing, and everybody should experience that. Because everybody feels as if I work, I add value, I make money. Well, are you willing to do it and not get anything out of it? Maybe I stand alone, and I'm okay with that. I am really okay with that. But I think, that mindset alone probably forged and cemented a work ethic leading into entrepreneurship for the rest of my life.
Okay, so you're 16. You leave home.
Leave home.
Did you graduate high school?
Yes. So I graduated, and this is kind of vague, and I'll explain this in a sense where it'll be understood. Let your imagination run wild to help other people that might, man, you don't know how bad I had it. If you only knew. Listen, you got to get past that. So I left home at 16. I was a runaway, and I'll never forget the last words out of my mom's mouth when I walked out the door. And she said, "You're a worthless piece of trash, and you'll never amount to anything." And dude, I was just a kid,
16.
16, and it was way more colorful than that.
Yeah.
But and so leaving home at 16 was not the hardest thing that I had done. Not going back was much harder. Right? So home was a scary place. The streets were pretty scary, but
Where'd you go?
first couple weeks was like
Friend's house?
laundromat.
Laundromat.
Yeah. Laundromat.
Mayport Road?
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
way.
You know which one? It was right there in that strip mall with Mayport Airport. Steve Stratton's dad owned a scuba shop over there. It was right road front, and the commissary was behind that.
Yep.
So
Where Hanger Bay Cafe is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and then eventually, some friends kind of caught wind because you leave home with a T-shirt and a pair of pants. That was it. So perpetually you're going to school, same clothes day in, day out.
You were still going to school.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I never missed school.
Wow.
And I used
How were you getting to school? Like a bus?
bus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The bus transportation out into the magnet program was phenomenal, and a lot of people that grew up with an adverse childhood. And I was thinking about this on the way here, back in the day, being punched in the face, that's not abuse. That's just building character. Nowadays, like a smack on the butt would be like, oh, they're calling DCF on you. You need to justify that. So I wasn't hit out of being reprimanded. I wasn't like beat out of compassion. If we're making you a better person, I was attacked out of rage, And so biological mom, she was just a nut. She was a crackhead, whatever. And then stepdad was just a heavy-handed loser. He'd drink, never any food in the house, but always beer. And I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm a victim. Those were the circumstances. That was the situation at hand. So when I first found that first opportunity where I could jump ship, so to speak, man, I cut that anchor off. And I remember leaving, and then I remember going to school, being called down to the guidance counselor's office. I'm like, what's up with this? Walked into there, opened up the door, And my biological mother was sitting in there trying to have me expelled from school because I was a legal runaway.
That's wild.
Yeah. And so that was a big changing point because that was my guidance counselor who, knew a little bit, and I was very standoffish. It was a defense mechanism. Everything was comedy. Tony was the funny guy.
Yep.
I could say funny stuff and take your mind off of anything because it was all like, if you keep people laughing, they won't ask questions, But I mean, this goes back to middle school. Like, you get the scoliosis test, and you're like the kid that's go over there because everyone else is taking their shirts off. So there was always times where I look back and like, why didn't anybody intervene? But it was different in those days,
Yeah.
There wasn't any people. It's not that they didn't want to be bothered. Maybe, I don't know. So it wasn't too long after that I actually got my first real job at Hungry Howie's.
Okay.
Right next. I know where Dragon's Tail is because you used to play Dungeons and Dragons.
What?
Negative.
So
Never.
across from the old Kmart where everybody used to skate, and then there was the Hungry Howie's.
Yep.
And again,
I don't think those buildings are there anymore.
they're not, and
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
it was.
There's a Subway.
I don't know
Back
what there
in the
is
day.
now. I don't even recognize the place.
Yeah.
But it was like 6 blocks from the beach. There used to be a Scotty's, which turned to an
Hardware. Yep.
Ames. And then there was a Little Caesar's Pizza next to it. And then the big Kmart that was closed ever since I knew.
Yeah.
And across the street, there was Hungry Howie's, Dungeons and Dragons, or I'm sorry, Dragon's Tales, and then Delcher's Leather Shop
Yep.
was right there. And so I remember they had a sign, now hiring. And I'm like, dude, I need to get something. So I walked in there and said, y'all hiring? Oh, and just saw that I was a mess. And his name was Kenny. He drove a 94 4Runner.
Ooh.
The back came off. I thought that was the
Ooh,
sickest
that
thing
is.
ever. Army green.
That is sick.
Nerf,
Oh my
roll
goodness.
cage. And I'm just like, this is sick. 35s. And so he's like, yeah, we're not hiring him, but you got to sign. He's like, I tell you what, do this for me. And he brings off this big box, dumps it on the counter. He's like, go to Otter Run and put these on the doors. They're door hangers, right? So I'm like,
That's an Otter Run is a neighborhood.
yeah. Otter Run was an apartment complex, 4 stories high, hundreds of apartments, down off of Assisi,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Yep.
You're familiar with that
Yes.
area? I don't know what it is anymore. I believe that was Otter Run. And I'm like, check, I can do that. I got my gravity board. Back wheels are like this big from riding.
You skated all the way.
Skated all the way there.
I mean, that's miles.
Dude, that was a drive. I used to go there all the way to the pier to surf,
That's
It's
crazy.
nothing.
right? I mean, streets were smooth, baby.
But
You see what I did?
You're skating with a heavy box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I get
For
down,
miles.
For miles. I get down there and I knock out the first couple buildings, and dude, I'm drenched in sweat. It's hot. And I'm like, I'm about to up this ante. And I start hanging 2 on every door.
Uh-oh.
And I'm up these stairs, do, up these stairs, do. And then on the way down, double. And there's only like, I would estimate that box might have had, let's just say 1,500 flyers,
Wow.
right? I get back to Kenny, and there's maybe 30 left. And I'm just drenched in sweat. And I was like, here you go, Mr. Kenny. He's like, what'd you do with all these? I said, exactly what you wanted. I hung them all up. He's like, all right. How do I get a hold of you? And I gave him the home number where I was staying at. And would you believe 3 hours later, he drove out there because he thought I just dumped them all in the trash. And would you believe for the next 3 months, they were making tons of deliveries to Otter Run, And I wouldn't want to say I impressed him with that, but I think that was something that stood out in his mind, and he took me on. Even though 16-year-old kid with a troubled past was, dude, one of the biggest benefits was just eating.
Free food.
Free food. Dude, I would make stuff
I'll
that
tell-
wasn't on the menu.
I was talking to somebody about this. When you're a teenager, dude, that job with free food is killer.
And does Hungry Howie still exist?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
In Jacksonville.
I have a story that I probably shouldn't say then, of how we made our sauce.
Okay.
It involves a human
Howie sauce.
a human arm and a 25-gallon bucket with this motion.
A mixer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I used to get the worst rashes.
Oh my.
It was so acidic.
Everything was cleaned. Your hand was cleaned. We'll just leave it at that.
I used to fall a lot skateboarding. so Hungry Howie's a great establishment, and they really gave me my first into an over-the-table every week pay.
Nice.
I mean, from what you were used to, you were killing it.
Yeah, yeah. And so I would work, and then I'd go to school, and I'd go to school, and I'd work. It was just, but work. I mean, Hungry Howie's closed at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock on Sundays. So, I mean, bagged under the eyes, and you're just making stuff happen. But at least it was a perpetual money paycheck. And, I felt like I was doing good. And then what had happened, there was a change of ownership because Kenny, he was a good dude, but he just had his issues. They found his truck out in Vegas, and
Yep.
yeah, he gambled it all away, and they found him in the hotel room.
Wow.
One to the face. So
Whoa.
yeah, so that was my first real life's pretty fragile, and
Wow.
comes or goes. But change of ownership, and with that change of staff, and I was still there, but I'm actually really embarrassed to tell this story, but like the public school system, I kind of learned how to cheat the system. And so I understood the way that they were billing, so to speak, and these tag systems. And, well, what happens if you don't fill out a carbon tag and you can just write a paper receipt and pocket the money? And so I started doing that because, man, I need money to live, and that eventually caught up with me. Fortunately, we didn't get authorities involved. It was just the new owners. I know what you're doing. If you want to make a big deal about it, we'll call the cops. And I said, no, I was just so shamed and embarrassed. But I tell that because, up to a certain point in my life where I hit this crossroads, it was just whatever you could do to survive, man, whatever it took. And it's not that I'm proud of that, but I had no other influence in my life. I had no parents. I was my legal guardian since I was 16. Permission slip came, sign it, pass it back in. Like, you can't do that. Who else is going to do it? I wasn't a legal adult, but I was my own legal guardian, responsible for everything. And so, so I graduated high school. I had a 4-year scholarship, full paid for music. And I remember how that shook out. I went in to register for classes, and they're like, okay, so you need to fill out your academics, your science, and your English. I said, I'm here for music. I took all that in high school. Oh, you might get to music in a couple years, but you need to do all these prerequisites. I said, I'm out of here. That sounds so stupid. So I flushed that right down the drain with no regrets, and then I just started working. And where I started working was with the guy that I was living with, Donnie Brown, who was
Grim Reaper.
That's
when I met you.
Yeah. Shortly after.
Yeah.
So I moved in that part of Cypress Cove, the newer, I'm not sure new or old, but it was still kind of Mayport. Like, there were dudes out on the corner selling crack. They were nice enough guys. I mean, they didn't jump me, but they had a interesting way of life. But I lived with them for quite some time, and it wasn't a parent child relationship. It was just, we were friends. Donnie and Shane, his girlfriend, they were much older than I were. My brother was living there too, much older than us at the time, but they weren't bad people. They just understood, we just needed help, right? We were just good kids that were caught up in a very bad situation, and not necessarily needed guidance. We weren't a charity to them. They didn't have kids of their own. And so Donnie was a crazy dude, man. You'd hear him coming down Mayport Road, 4 or 5 miles up, blasting his Iron Maiden, his, Metallica. Every vehicle he bought, first thing he did was put in these like 20-inch subwoofers. And it was an awesome experience.
He had this big white van. I think it was a Dodge.
It was a Dodge
van, and it had Grim Reefer on the front window in big white letters.
Yeah. And he had a boat.
He laid carpet, right?
He did.
So that's why they had the big long.
Yeah.
How did you know this guy?
I just saw him driving around Mayport because we lived at Mayport at this time.
So you lived in the same complex?
Same neighborhood.
Yeah, but different.
You just
sides.
ran into each other? That's how you met? Or you knew
Well,
someone?
I didn't know him. I knew a van, the Grim Reefer. You can't miss that guy running around town.
Yeah.
And at some point, we got introduced.
Well, it was before that, too, because I remember I started working at this establishment, House of Floors. Mm-hmm. Donnie said, hey, man, if you're not going to work there, I can get you a job at House of Floors, just managing the carpet, rolling up these carpets, inventory them on the forklift. And I remember 2 dudes walking through, and I'm like, interesting. What are these guys doing in the warehouse? And Matt was one of those guys, and that was 90.
Yeah, because that was before automotive dent specialist. I worked for Manager in Paint and Decorating, and we did carpet, vinyl floor, and paint. And so I was like the delivery guy. I drove the Dodge van all over town. I go pick up paint and take it to job sites or carpet or whatever it was. So supply houses I'd go to and grab supplies, whatever, and deliver them up to all the random job sites. I almost died in that van. I had that thing loaded up with 2 pallets of 5-gallon buckets of paint. I mean, stacked. And I was driving, and I hit the brakes hard, and everything just came forward and just crushed my seat up against the steering wheel. And that was pretty brutal. But that was before. I don't know. Like I had a lot of those little jobs before automotive dent specialist, but and that would have been 90, probably 90. So I graduated in 95. It would have been 96 or 97.
So it was 99 because you came in looking at the fire suppression system.
So then that would have been early 98.
There you go. Yeah. So I mean we're probably months apart.
Because at that point I didn't work for the Manager in Paint and Decorating. Yep. I worked for Fire Sprinkler Services.
Did Chip work?
Me and Chip worked for Fire Sprinkler Services, and we installed the fire sprinklers.
Yeah. That
was my job before I got into doing dents.
Yeah. So that's where I first laid eyes on you. But then eventually, I remember going down the street and you had just broken your. I remember you and Shane Hood riding by. I don't know what was behind us, but there's dirt bikes, wang wang wang.
That was us. Yeah.
And there were some jumps or something back there. But I had first met you in person. We walked into your house when you were living with Shane Hood, and you were gimped up on the couch. Leg was broke. You had some work done on your side, so you were sitting like this. And I'm like, that dude's pretty cool. So that was our first.
Man, I wish I had a picture of that.
And I'm like, how'd you break? Well, maybe I even figured out how you broke your leg, but
that house was just jacked up trucks, lowered Volkswagens, and then dirt bikes.
Yeah, yeah.
In a nice civil neighborhood, that part of the neighborhood of Mayport, it was a brand new neighborhood. There's all these nice little tract homes that they're building. And we moved into that place. I don't know how we got in there. There was an old Navy admiral that owned the property, who owned the house. He bought it as a rental property. And somehow we found it for rent, and he rented it to us, me and Shane and RL. And we looked like a bunch of punks, again, jacked up trucks. Everything had 35 to 44-inch tires or super slammed Volkswagen Bugs, and just trailers with dirt bikes. And we just ride the dirt bikes around the neighborhood. And then behind it was, what's that park?
I don't know.
It's an island reserve now.
Yes, Dutton Island.
Dutton Island. So before that was open, we would sneak in and we would just build jumps and ride our dirt bikes back there and jump them and you'd only ride like 15 minutes because the cops would eventually come, and you had to ride back home and park them in the garage and shut it before the cops showed up. We got caught doing that a few times. But yeah, right there at Dutton Island. And I remember I met you and your brother at some point when we, during our stay there. That's when I met Kelly too. Is in that house. Really good memories in that house.
Yeah, is it? But now a message from our sponsors. We jumped right into that. I forgot to realize I brought gifts.
Okay.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Oh wow.
You didn't know this?
Well, I saw these little things over here earlier, but
So get those out of the way before I totally forget it.
Okay.
Want us to open them?
Please, if you don't mind, I am a gentleman.
Okay. All right. Same time?
Well, one's for you, one's for Matt, and that one.
And this one?
Yep.
Okay. Matt. That one says Matt on it. All right. This one says James. Wrapped in paper.
Dang.
Wow.
So these should be the
my
correct
gosh.
sizes. Hey, I'm a gentleman. I hook you up. I think Matt might have got another one
We could have
because
been twins.
we could have been.
Oh, long sleeve, bro.
Yeah, I think there's I don't know how I did the mix,
couldn't.
but
So this shirt, I couldn't see what was on it because I'm looking at him from the side. But now as I look at it from the front, there's an A, and then there's a spade. So for Ace of Spades, Paintless Dent Repair. What's up?
That's so sick. And you did all these, right?
I did. Yeah.
He printed all these.
Wow.
So yeah, so
That's super cool, man.
Large. I think that's a long sleeve, and then the other. I know white.
sweet, long
White.
sleeve.
White is what it is, but I mean, wear it, get it dingy, throw it away. You know.
I had a white shirt. I figured out my wife's good at tie dyeing.
Okay.
When it gets dingy, you tie dye that junk.
Will that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you don't want your brand associated with tie dye.
Not really, but
Yeah, I don't either.
do it
I
on
have
an
a
all-out
tank
shirt.
top. I have a sunrise tank top
No,
that's
what-
tie dye.
One of my guys before had an old all-out shirt, and he tie-dyed it, and I was like, don't you freaking ever wear that. I made him take it off.
Wear it when you work.
These
on
are super cool.
The Foresters.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. You're welcome.
So just going into these real quick, this is the
DTF.
DTF.
Yeah.
And this all holds up really well.
100+ washes.
What's DTF? Direct transfer film.
Yes.
Direct to fabric.
Direct to fabric. Oh.
Yeah, we can make it up as we want to, but they're pretty bomb-proof. You get the accuracy, you get the softness without the screen printing. My daughter has a sublamination business, so she has all the equipment to be able to do it. I used to have a
That's super
wholesale
cool, bro.
account through doing a clothing company. So
I want to leave these
All
right here
right.
for interest.
next up, so there's two. There's a small and a big. Let's go. Yep, hand that to James. Let him do this one.
That's lead. It's very heavy.
All right. Wow. Big, heavy rectangle.
Kind of went. Didn't want it to be transparent. It was kind of cheap wrap. It's not wrapping paper. It's craft paper. But I kind of didn't want it to get all scratched up either. So
Oh my gosh. Holy crap.
So this is the first thing I ever casted in epoxy. If I could do it all over again, I learned there was a learning curve to it. Not as clear as I wanted it to be, but the mold that I made was not square, so I had to rip it down, sand it, starting from 60 and buff it all the way to 4,000. But that is number 002.
Dang.
I wanted to get 001, but Matt sleeps with it every night.
Yes.
But I
That's so
figured
freaking cool, man.
if I can't have it, nobody will.
So it's the Skull Crusher hammer, serial number 002,
In epoxy.
in a brick of epoxy.
That's so
And
sick.
I was joking around. I sent a picture to somebody, and I said I'm going to throw it into the side of your Raptor, and said #fix that.
I'm glad you didn't, because I don't know. This thing's aluminum. Might have ripped through this. This thing's heavy, bro.
It is very heavy. Epoxy, and you can only do it in like a 1/4 of an inch at a time, or it could potentially ignite. So it was definitely a learning curve.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Plus, I'm doing it in a New England environment, so I had to really boast up a heated room for that
Wow.
to be able to set. But long story short, it's
So we're gonna have to make a shelf for that here, right?
it might have to actually be
You have to be
secured into a beam.
supported structurally.
Yeah, it's very heavy. Super, super duper heavy. Nice, man. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. And then
this way.
last gift.
The big one here.
So, and before you open it, I mean, you can engage, but this is not just from me. I'm going on behalf of the entire Dent community, and this is going to sound total homo, but I don't think there are more people that have put an impact on giving back to the community that you have. You know, you talk to people, and everybody's been influenced by you in one way or the other. You know, James, your network of friends. It's been a really cool culture, and I think you've been a catalyst for that. So this is on behalf of everybody.
Thank you, man.
It's a box.
Box, 18 inches by 18 inches by 6 inches. Wrapped in white paper with a nice bow.
Let's see if I got my knife. I do.
He has his knife this week.
Always.
Last time, he was embarrassed because he had to borrow mine.
Now,
He didn't have his.
as we go into the reveal, there are only a couple things in this world that I absolutely love the smell of. One of them is a brand new surfboard.
One.
Secondly, my wife's perfume.
Okay.
Drives me crazy. Third, boom shakalaka, right here.
Republic
What?
boots.
New boots.
Dude. Here, let me set it over here.
I know we're running out of space.
Let's see what's going on here. Dang.
Whoa.
Okay. Dude. Hold on.
Wow. Oh my gosh. No way.
Custom, baby.
No way.
That is sick.
Wow.
That is sick. Marcio, I'm going to try to go in this camera real quick. That one right there.
Here, I'm going to put this smell up to the mic.
Oh,
So you
it's
can smell
amazing.
it.
It's
Smells like new leather. I mean,
it's amazing.
Dude.
cowboy boots, what? A brown with a dense layer.
I believe it's the Crockett model. That's the only ones they'll actually customize to be able to
Unbelievable.
etch a logo in there.
It's
That
wild.
is sick, man.
Yeah.
Dense layer logo in the front of both of boots.
They did a good job.
And they do smell really
Are
good.
these to wear or to hang on the wall?
No, they're to wear, man.
Okay.
Oh, you got to wear them.
I got a pair, and
You got to wear them on every podcast. Wear them to MTE since they're from the
Dude.
community.
you got to break them in.
Oh, they smell so good,
They
too.
do.
Wow.
One of my favorite smells in the world.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much.
No, it's
man.
my pleasure.
That's
Wow.
freaking crazy.
I've been holding on to those for quite some time,
That's crazy.
and then I didn't want them, so I figured I'll just regift them.
Dude, I can't. I mean, that's a super. All these are super
Yeah.
cool, man. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
I figure that's the least let's just say we as a community could do for someone who's given so much back. So it's all small fruit.
No, dude,
Wow.
that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge, man.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Unreal.
James, you can wear the left one. I'll wear the right one.
No. These are size 9.5, buddy. My
Okay.
foot's not fitting in there.
Yeah.
What's
All
your
right.
shoe size?
11.
Oh, wow. That's big.
Yeah. Well, good.
Wow.
You can't wear them then. Well, thank you, man. That's
Yeah.
that's huge. That's
Yeah.
totally huge.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you had something connected to this, or what? Like you want?
No. I mean, I just appreciate. Well, I mean, if you want to go really like, I think back when we were in the days of youth, I think you introduced a lot of people to Delchers
Yeah.
with the leather belts and all these belt buckles, and we had a whole cult of people that were going in there spending hundreds of dollars. And every time I came back to Jacksonville, I'm always like, I got to stop by Delchers and get a new belt. Mine's broke. I mean, I had a belt for 18 years. And
Delcher is a custom leather shop here in town that sells supplies, and he would do like small little projects. But as he got older, he quit doing like custom stuff, and he really just wanted to sell you the tools to do it yourself. And he's one of those guys. He's just an old head with a lot of knowledge of his craft. Like, there's a lot of leather supply companies out there, but like this is a guy who can build anything or make anything out of leather, and he loved the fact that me and our crew of guys that were coming in there were kind of picking up this craft. And as you could see him kind of getting bored with the industry, then we came in and it kind of revived it, and he got excited. And so I could get him to help me make stuff, and like he'd sell me the supplies to do stuff, and then I'd take it to him and I'd spend like a couple hours at his shop doing it with him. Like, let me show you how to do it. And he's over there with his sewing machine, sewing stuff and helping us make it. Started with dog collars. I started, belts. We started making belts. And then I started making dog collars for my pit bull, my Doberman. And we had super cool, geeking out about this stuff, like making like really sick dog collars, like spiked dog collars. And then the leather belts, stamping everything. And then painting the letters so they still. I still have all those belts.
And
I still
that's
got them
the
all.
interesting
Still got the
thing.
dog collars too.
After that transition, so now we're full-grown adults, families coming back in town, want to get some brand new belts. Delcher, can you make me a new wallet? Nah, I don't do that anymore. What? That's funny because you made one for my buddy. Who's your buddy? I said, Matt, the Dent guy. And every time I saw him after that, I had to drop Matt's name or he would never do anything for me. I'd have to buy a stock belt and he would just like cut it to size and that was about it. But I mean, the last stop I made, I blew through a few wallets and the last one he made, he actually mailed it up to me and it was like first class service.
Wow.
So it's interesting how when you drop Matt's name, things get done.
He's still there.
He's still he lived Neptune Beach now.
Yeah, so right in front of the dog park. If you go to Mayport, you turn left and you turn right, you go around like Rappin and Penman. Mm-hmm. He's right there on the left. Like as soon as you turn right, you're first left. And what's the dog park?
I don't know.
It's a huge dog park right behind his shop.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
Wow.
Still got the same parrot.
still got the same parrot. His name's Rambo.
Yeah.
A parrot?
Parrot, yeah.
Most parrots would bite your finger off. This could sever your arm.
Yeah.
He's just a gnarly,
His name's Rambo.
angry parrot.
Would it sit on his shoulder?
Yeah, he takes him to bars. He rides on the. I mean, it's his companion. He's had this thing since I've known him,
Yeah.
which is in my 20s.
30
I'm 48.
years, easy.
Yeah, it's the same parrot. I mean, he everywhere Delcher goes, this parrot goes on
It'll
his bike, on
probably-
his shoulder.
Yeah.
like
It will
it's-
definitely outlive him.
Yeah.
Wow. How long do parrots live?
Long time.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Parrot.
Apparently.
Apparently.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, the leather has a spot in my heart for sure.
Yeah. So it was definitely, it wasn't just an impulse. Look at what I can do. It was pretty well thought out. Sorry, man. It was just too much clutter here
No,
for
it's
me.
all good.
Wow.
So
Thank you, Tony. Unreal.
yeah. But
So we meet sometime around 98 ish.
Yep.
And then even when we lived in Mayport, you didn't hang out much. We'd have some parties, and I think you or Mike would show up occasionally. But I was actually at that point getting out of that scene. I just got saved, and I started hanging out with the Christian punk band, and that's kind of how I met my wife, through a guy there. But I was kind of getting out of that scene. I wanted to trying to get away from the beach, get away from that party scene, and you guys weren't into that really. You guys weren't
so busy
partiers.
working
Yeah.
all the time.
So y'all'd come over, but it wasn't to party. It was just like to touch base or whatever, to connect, and then they'd be out. Like,
Go back to work.
Yeah.
go back to
Yeah,
work.
we didn't have the parachute or the backup plan. It was just like if you were dragging the next day, because at that point I went from working in the warehouse to laying floors.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like how we had that common connection. Because
Your brother was doing the same thing?
Yep.
That's where he got
Yep,
started?
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. And it was an amazing skill set, and it was hard work, and it was very physically demanding, but it was very financially beneficial. A lot like the Dent game for y'all when you first started, right?
So Tony's brother to this day owns a flooring company.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, carpet and floors are they're the golden handcuffs, right? But that essentially took me to a position in my life where, man, I wouldn't say I was wet and wild, but I had no guidance. So there was a lot of stuff that just didn't make sense. There was nobody to tell me what to do with my money, how to save my money. I was making pretty good money for a 16, 18-year-old kid, and nothing but debt going in 19 years old, making more money. There were times where I'd go to do laundry and I'd find like $800 cash in my pocket. No big deal, you know? It was just because you're so young and ambitious, it was like easy money. There was no one to say, hey, man, you should manage this a little bit better. Hey, man, open up a checking account.
Open up a bank account.
Nothing like that. I mean,
You're just putting it in the mattress?
Putting it in a
no,
jar.
I was putting it in whatever I never had. Clothes, food, vehicles.
Living it up.
I had to live it up, man.
Yeah.
There were no other options. Well, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. There were plenty of other options. I just didn't have the guidance to do so.
Yeah, that's what you knew.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
hit this crossroads, and it was just like, okay, you can become everything that is statistically laid out for you with someone with a adverse childhood, right? Addiction, incarceration, early death, or you have an opportunity to pivot and do something few people ever have a second chance to do, right? And I chose the road less traveled by. And it was a powerful moment, very powerful, because
You say a moment, like, did something happen?
yeah, man, I remember I was going to my brother was dating this chick, and he was going to a Bible study at the beach, and I would drop him off, and dropping him off, and he's like, hey, man, now it's at some other... I'm like, dude, I'm not taking you to random people's house for a Bible study. So anyway, I believe I gave in. I'll just do a drive-by, you get out, and then I'll go do my thing. And I see this girl come out. I'm like, again, good memory with names, dates, places. I'm like, Leah Goodman? I remember her from second grade because as we were standing up to say the Pledge of Allegiance, I moved her chair out of the way. So when we were done, she sat down and it was straight to the floor. And it brought her to tears. And I felt terrible and gotten big trouble for it. But she was there. And so I went up and talked to her. I didn't have any association with anybody at the beach because I was going to town for school. So I saw her. I was like, man, maybe I'll hang out. She's good looking-ish, right? And I remember sitting around, and there's all these dudes that I would recognize from in the water, and they were top-tier surfers. And this dude who was an amazing catalyst for me and ended up becoming one of my very good friends was explaining this story that happened the previous week as small discussion in a group environment of he was a lifeguard, ocean guard. Sorry, no offense. It's not the pool, it's the ocean, baby, right?
That's right.
Storm's coming in off the horizon, and he's just like, got to clear the beach, you know, doing the whatever baton thing with the flags and blowing the whistles. Everybody off the beach. We're out of here. And so there's this old guy struggling with some aluminum lawn chairs and a cooler, and he's just all over the place, a beach umbrella, and Barrett drops, runs over there. He's like, I'll get all this, you get the cooler, and go. Now it's like raining.
Because lightning. They would close the beach for lightning.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
So
And
that
it
you
was
don't-
like
people-
kaboom.
Yeah. You don't want to get struck by lightning. On the
No.
beach, it's more likely.
Yeah. So this guy's like 25 feet in front of him carrying this cooler, and Barrett says, I saw a flash. And he's just like, then my pupils dilated, and this guy that was once carrying the cooler is now face down on the ground.
No way.
Yeah, face down on the ground. So he's a lifeguard, you know, ocean guard. He knows what to do, first response. So he goes over there, and the guy's bleeding from every orifice of his body.
No way.
Eyes, nose, ears. And, you know, as he's telling the story, he's recalling, like, but I was carrying the aluminum umbrella and the aluminum chairs. This guy was just here carrying a cooler. So he's doing chest compressions, and mouth. You know, and this is back in the day. This is like 98, you know? So he's just like, I'm covered in this guy's blood. He has blood in my mouth. And, you know, he had to take these blood tests, and I don't know all the medical terminology for it, but cross-contamination. And so he was like sitting on his bed, and I'm so into this story. I'm like, this is amazing. Whoa. And he's like, I'm so afraid. And he said audibly, like, that is the moment I heard God's voice said, you're my child. I'll protect you. And I'm like, man, this just got weird. Like, man, can it like have a good ending? But I'm looking at all these dudes. Like, I always thought Christian dudes were geeky, dorky, tuck their shirt in, rope belt. And I'm like, these dudes are legit surfers. So, it really got me questioning and wondering and hanging out with Barrett. And we're out in the water one day. And, he asks me, like, hey, man, what do you know about Jesus? And I just kind of pretend I didn't hear him, because that was one of those awkward questions for me, because, I never, for me, the religion was never, it was just never taught. It was never caught. I was never exposed to it. We were just dirt white trash that were just trying to survive and make stuff happen. And then I go into teenage years where I'm just like carrying all this baggage of wrongs, and I don't know how to deal with it. And then I got this backlog of rage that I can't compartmentalize. I'm just a mess. So I'm like, I can't deal with that. So I'm just like, I remember going out to Kona, and
World's oldest continuously operating skate park here in Jacksonville, Florida. Kona Skate Park.
And I remember Barrett praying before he would skate. And I'm like, that's so weird, man. And, then I'd have some conversations late nights, and I would never share any of my back history or my stories. And I remember hitting that crossroad being like, this could anger, rage, theft, mischief could be the end of me. Every night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, friends were going out, having a good time, maybe getting loose crazy. They're like, come on. I said, no, I can't. Well, come on, man. Why? I said, because I have no backup plan. You guys have parents to call. I got nobody. Like, that's a scary thing. Oh, you'll be fine. I said, I can't take that chance. And I remember at one point in time going into this church and hearing this guy preach. And I audibly heard the voice of God say, I love you. And that was the first time I had ever heard that in my entire life. And I was petrified, I was head under the seats, hiding, snot coming out. I'm just like, no, like, why? Don't you know what I've done? Don't you know who I'm damaged goods, man. And it was an amazing, the next day, people are like, there's something different about you. You look different. I'm like, same dirty clothes? No, you're standing up straighter. Like your facial structure, something, like, I don't know. And I came to notice that a lot of that I didn't have to carry with me, And so there's a lot of people with that hurt and hopelessness, and they think that's just the way it has to be, but it doesn't. And it was a turning point in my life. And so still to current day, regardless of the circumstance, I used to modify a lot of vehicles and have stuff done and build these amazing rigs and walk through these shops of, techs. And guys are like, how can you just come in here and give high fives and be like this guy that doesn't have a care in the world? And I would always think to myself, my other option was incarceration, drug addiction. So I'm light years ahead of every male in my bloodline. And that's an amazing feeling. I don't care what the circumstances of the worlds are. And so, like, I don't get emotional about much stuff. I pretty much have no feeling or emotion. But when I look at my kids and my wife, I think that's not the story I was supposed to be living. It's pretty powerful,
Yeah.
Very powerful.
you know? So, you know, I've got a big heart for the youth with troubled past. I wish I could do something more actively to do it, but it's just too real for me. So I try to keep my distance. But a guy as good looking as myself has helped out many communities over his career. And there's a lot of people, well, you do something about it. Oh, well, I did. I didn't make the check in my name because I didn't want any of the recognition. So I would love to say there's tens of thousands of people out there that had a little bit more opportunities than I ever had. You know? So
I was talking to my wife. Someone we know is kind of just going through some normal life stuff. And they were carrying that burden. And we were just saying, like, hey, we're Christians. We feel those same things, but we don't have to carry that burden on us. We have somebody else to carry that burden, and how, like, liberating that is.
yeah, man, that's what true freedom feels like, you know?
I think it's crazy that my mom has a similar, different circumstances, but you know, a similar story of how she was raised and where she came out of, and I think it's crazy that people can come out of a situation like that, because usually the story is you become
Right, a product of your environment.
of course, that statistic, but there's something that happens in a few that doesn't. Like it sends them, that I would say propels them in a different direction, because you didn't just go in a different direction. You were propelled, I would say.
Absolutely.
My mom is the same. It's like this magnetic force that instead of attracting it, it just pushes it away. And so I think, I don't know. I think that's so interesting that something is, there's some factor that does that, and it's, I don't know what that is, but when I hear my mom's story, it's just as, you know, it's very dramatic in the same way of these things, and you sit back and you're like, dude, I don't know how you survived, how you turned that corner to come out of that, but it's truly amazing. You know, I've known a little bit of your story. I mean, we've never gone in depth really to that degree, but I just think it's amazing to see that you weren't.
Yeah. And, you know, it's really interesting because, you know, when I retired from my last business, and, you know, we had this coined phrase, must be nice. You know, we're getting done work early. We're making a killer living. And everyone's, must be nice. But I also would hear that a lot, like, you know, we would host these father-daughter dances and these deep freeze when our kids were younger, and I'd clean out my shop. So all the cool stuff would be out in the parking lot. People would show up, must be nice. I'm thinking, you don't understand the sewers that I had to crawl through to come out clean on the other side. You know, people see you here and now, and I would love to have that, but that was just never given.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I find amazing is I had a good friend in high school who was very compassionate with me. He kind of knew enough, but never pried or asked any questions. And, you know, after he graduated, we lost touch, and his dad was a lawyer, beautiful mom, amazingly gorgeous sisters. His sister was into horses, so they bought this ranch out in Mandarin and raised and housed boarded horses. So they had, just to set a record,
If you got horses,
you got some money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would do a lot of work for them on weekends and just help out. And they were great people, good, strong family. And we graduated in 98, 10-year reunion, lost touch until their day of the reunion. I said, I'll keep it very vague so we don't villainize any situations. And I said, I cannot believe we lost contact. What have you been up to? He's like, oh, nothing. I'm like, that is so like you to say. You had the world at your fingertips. You were an amazing surfer. You're great looking. You were an amazing musician going off to college. What happened? I want to know it all. He's like, to be honest, man, I just got out of rehab. And it was like somebody took and threw me through the back of the school bus. And I'm like, what? He said, I went off to college and went to a party. And he said, for once, I just wanted to do my own thing. And then here I am waking up 10 years later. And I was so emotional at that moment because I said, that was not your life. That was supposed to be my life. And I hear stories like that all the time. And I look at these kids, dudes, comrades, and I'm so thankful for that grace that guided me down the path less traveled, right? It's crazy. And the older you get, the wiser you become, the more you start to think about those heavy divine experiences. Like, I wanted to do this, but it didn't happen. I had all this, but it didn't happen. And you're like, but why? Everything fell through. And here you are 10, 15, 30 years later. Oh, I guess there was a bigger plan. You know, I wanted something so bad. I can't believe it didn't. I mean, you know, bad things happen to good people all the time. And I don't ever feel as if I was a victim of circumstance. I'm very fortunate to, let's just say, a survivor of my experience. Very fortunate to come out clean on the other side. And there's so many people with the victim mentality that just can't get past, I never knew my dad. Listen, I never knew my biological dad. And when I met him at the age of 28, I had my son. My son was born, and I remember holding him, just crying. Like, how could anybody give this up? Why wouldn't anybody, you know, this is a part of me. So I said, you know what, I gotta start doing some healing, because on the inside, it's beyond hurt. Like, it's crippling. My wife might know 3% of my entire childhood. Like, I was so angry all the time. And it was all, for me, I always justified it, right? I was justifiably angry because I was mentally, physically, sexually, financially, spiritually abused on every level by the people that were supposed to provide and protect for you. And they failed in a big way. And now, everything I do, I hear that constant voice. You're never going to amount to anything. And that was, in a sense, crippling on its own. I mean, I would butter a piece of toast, and it wasn't perfect. Yep, I knew I was going to be a failure.
Yeah, it's crazy how those...
Very small.
We say those, as adults, we say those things that to a child,
Yeah.
and it sticks.
Yeah.
Because she probably doesn't even remember that. But if you, I would probably bet that the story of whatever your mom went through, whatever your dad went through, is probably really bad. You know, everybody has a backstory.
Yeah. Abuse is a learned behavior.
Yeah.
And so you kind of, I'm not sympathetic, I'm not empathetic, but you kind of wonder what it took to make monsters like that. So at 28, I found my biological father, and imagine how that phone call was. Like, hey.
You hunted him down?
There were some small town in Illinois, and still lived there and worked for Ford making lug nuts, right? Workaholic, and I had so much to blame him for because he chose not to be around, and don't you know the ex. So I found him, drove into his house in my rental car and said, hey, would you like to go to lunch? Oh, I would love that. I said, well, I just want to hash some stuff out. Okay, man, I'd love to talk. He goes to embrace me, and I just take a step back because physical contact for me was very awkward. Like, stay out of my space. Just kind of stiffed it. And we sat down on his couch, and I looked around his house with a little, very modest 2-bedroom, 1 bath in middle of nowhere, Illinois, and no pictures, no memorabilia, just work trophy, work plaque. Those were the accomplishments. I'm like, oh, this looks like it kind of sucks. And here, now I'm getting, you could move on with life, and I'm replaceable. So now I'm having this guilt. And we sat down on the couch, and it was very surreal. You know, I'm looking at this man like, whoa, I have that same wrinkle. And I'm looking at his hands. my hands are the same way. Like, those are my eyes, but they're 30 years older. It was out of body experience. And he starts talking, stop, I'm not here for this romantic comedy. I just want you to understand, because you chose not to be around, what I had to go through. And he's like, I tried. And I said, I know what trying is. And he said, I was an alcoholic till I was 55. I would have never given you a better life. And he said, I don't know if you I don't know if you know anything about addiction. And I said, I know enough not to be an addict. And he said, I'm proud of you for that. It broke me, man. I've never, from a stranger, complete stranger, to hear those words of affirmation, I was crying like a baby, uncontrollably, weeping. I just couldn't stop, and it was just so simple. So anyway, life goes on. We go have lunch, and, I'm just catching up. Yeah, man, I got a booming business. I got a wife and a son, and things are going well. I got a house that the mortgage is paid off. And he's like, I'd love to meet your family. And still to this day, I regret my response. And I was still so guardian, protector. I said, why would I do that? And all I can think nowadays, at 16 years later, how much that must have hurt, to have resolve in his life and maybe see a glimmer of hope, and for me to just stiff arm that and say, I don't need you, because I didn't. I never had it. So why am I trying to fill it in, that void now? My ship is in a totally different hemisphere. Like, I'm not going back. But it was a very monumental point in my life where I could release a lot of that. Dude, it was just the way the cards were going to be dealt. I can't, I live by a specific creed now, but one of those lines, I'm responsible for everything in my life, and that gives me the power and control to change the circumstances, right? And that's just the way it was going to be. You just got to pick up and move on. And so I never had contact with him again after that. Never desire. It was 26, 27 years before I saw my biological mom again, when I had to bury my grandmother. And that was, here I am, maybe 38, 40 years old, a business that I'm about to off, and a beautiful wife, and she says to me, just like I thought, a worthless piece of trash.
Your mom said that to you?
Yeah.
Why?
At the funeral?
Yeah, why not? Why not? And I said, doesn't matter. Like, it's been 26 years. You don't know me. Not like, I'm just like, I don't even hear it. I've got this hedge of protection around me. But it's interesting because you hear, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, you hear stories of people, I don't talk to my parents. One time they called me fat. I'm like, and then what? Well, that was it. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't talk to them because they didn't get me what I wanted for Christmas that one year. Or they always favored I'm like, wow, but trauma's trauma. I'm not trying to sideline that, but what potentially could break some people, I would not let it happen. And probably one of the worst things that had ever happened to me, and I can give you the keep in memory for the full 18 minutes, is when my older brother, they broke his spirit. And I said, you will never do that to me. And as a full-grown man today, you see a man with a broken spirit. It breaks your heart. And you can identify that in other men, But anyway, are you guys charging me for the therapy session? It's getting kind of expensive podcast. But yeah, so interesting enough, I was married at a very young age, specifically because when I met my wife, that was the first person in my life physically that ever showed me any type of you're a good man.
She affirmed you.
Yeah. And that was my love language. You know, and I was appreciated and respected and desired. I wasn't an inconvenience. I wasn't a pincushion. I wasn't an excuse. And it was very awkward for me. Still to this day, like public display of affection, holding hands, I can't do it. I try, and I cringe. Like it's something in my DNA that I'm trying to reconstruct and rewire. But we got 2 healthy, happy kids. I mean, we're definitely compatible.
Okay, so you're in Florida. You moved to Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, correct.
Why?
I had a buddy that I was working with doing floors.
Okay.
As we, segue into that, and he was moving to Massachusetts to be closer to his family. And I said, "Man, I work, I surf, repeat. Like, there's got to be more to life than this. I'm ready for a journey." Because what was happening is I was depending a lot of my growth and relationship spiritually on my core group of friends, And, most of them were going off to college. So we were kind of starting to cleave away where nobody's working, and I didn't know Matt that well, but everybody that you were probably one of the few that were actually full-time working. Everybody else was in college. And so I didn't choose that path, and I moved to Massachusetts so he could be closer to his family. We were a tag team, and I went up there, started doing floors and killing it up there, making way better money than down here. Cost of living was much better. The price per square foot was much better until I was skating at this indoor skate park in the middle of winter, and I fell, and my hand landed first. My hand went past the mini ramp. My thumb stayed on, and it just flopped right over. And I'm like, oh no. I just tried to joystick it back in place. I'm like, I'm probably going to have to go to the hospital for this one. No health insurance. So go there, stay there all night. They give me some wonky free cast. And I get out of there with like a bottle of, high-dose Tylenol, 2 hours of sleep, go up to work. The contractor we were working for says, "Hey, man, you can't work like that." "Oh, I can, man. I can do everything left-handed." Nope. I said, wah, wah, wah. And that was it. There was no we'll find something for you. Nope, we don't want that liability. Find somewhere else. So someone with a lot of drive and ambition and desire with no parental guidance equals very little backup plan or strategy. So I'm broke. I'm beyond broke. I'm in debt, And so, I just start scrapping for anything I can possibly do. And interesting enough, someone says, "Hey, they're looking for people for this inner city camp." I'm like, cool. Not physical labor, even better. So I worked there for a couple months just as a counselor. It was dirt pay. Basically, you're eating for, you're getting your wages and food. Right? And good stories with the youth, and that was too real for me. But anyway, met a guy from the summer camp, framed some houses, never got paid for that. Ended up moving back to Massachusetts, working doing hardwood floors with Ashley's dad for maybe a year. And then Ashley, we met and we got married like that. Let's get this show on the road, man. I'm not sitting around trying to play Don Juan. If this is meant to be, let's get this bird in the air.
What year would that have been?
This was 2003.
Okay.
At that point. So I'll save you all the romantic comedies with their proposal and whatnot. It's an amazing story, but what had happened was we got married, and then we moved into a different town, and I was just trying to find any work that I could do doing floors. And the flooring gig kind of started to dry up. So with Ashley's mindset and my work ethic, she was, banking money, and eventually I got another job just doing landscaping, and that was, I think, the second job I ever had that was on the books. First was Hungry Howie's. So now I'm 23 years old, and that's the first job I've ever had, like, paycheck every week. And it wasn't much money, but at least it was consistent. And the physical labor was just easy. Doing floors, it puts a rag on you, but you get paid pretty well in wages. So long story short, we bought our first property in 2003. And we got an 80-20 loan because it had a renter upstairs. I'm like, sweet. He's going to pay some of the mortgage. We pay the rest. This is too good to be true. That was the only way we were able to buy in this geographical part of Massachusetts that was pretty well to do. And I mean, maybe I'll date myself, but it's not the 70s anymore. I mean, our starter home was $250,000 for a 1,100 square foot house that was built in 1857.
Wow.
That's cool.
And I spent the next 8 years restoring that thing back to its original. So one thing that I really wanted to share is I feel like, I don't want to say it's my calling, but I'm very passionate. Everything has a redemptive purpose. Everything that I see, I'm like, yeah, it can be better. There's another part of this how I live is leave things better than you found them. Right? And I think that's why the Dent game really was like, oh, this is cool. Right? You're taking something that no one wants to touch. Every property, every vehicle. I think this can be better. Now we're not seeing it. Okay. Then 5 years later, someone's like, whoa. I'm like,
must be nice.
Must be nice.
Must be nice to have this nice house.
And so the person we bought that house off of actually had a small business. And as we're closing this deal, he's like, hey, what do you do for work? I landscape. I get laid off in the winters, and I BMX all winter long. And I had a small clothing company that I'd print these shirts. And it was cool, but it was more like a hobby. And I'm like, where's that adulthood line? I'm still young and rebellious. Love my wife, and, she's going to school. And I'm just no authority, man. So long story short, he offers me a job doing this thing called weatherization. And in the Northeast, most of the homes, let's just say high 85%, are heated with natural gas or oil. You don't really have electric. And the ones that are electric are kind of newer. So these houses circa late 1700s to 1960 all needed this remediation to help them become more, let's just say, more energy efficient. Because fossil fuels, they go up, they go down. At some points, people were paying $1,200 to heat their house to 50 degrees in the dead of winter.
For a month.
For 1 month.
Whoa.
1 month. So he had this small business that he just kind of acquired and bought into, and I said, oh, this is kind of cool. Tried to Google search it, didn't find anything. So I was working with him, and I said, this is actually a pretty cool niche. And within 18 months, I saw a lot of red flags. Every time I tried to take 5 steps forward, he was taking 9 back. Organization, payment, receivables, everything was just all over the place. He had a very spastic personality. And I was just the cash cow, winding me up, put me on a job. I'll just make it happen, help or no help. He wasn't very good at managing the situations. So we were doing a lot of work and weatherization through a program in Massachusetts. And I'll try to keep it very brief because it can be very boring. It was a federally funded program that goes into these homes for low income and elderly and says, hey, we're going to try to get you back up on your feet. What's your net income from last year? Do you qualify? We're going to come in and dump $10,000 insulation, air sealing improvements into your house. First was health and safety. Then it was some other diagnostics. Last but not least, insulate. So now we can get you can afford your own utilities and come off of this. And for us, it was just like, feed them jobs, feed them jobs, feed them jobs. So I did that for quite a long time with them. And I loved what I did. I just couldn't handle the back and forth of the chaos with what he had provided. So I was on this job, and there was 15 windows to replace, and this guy was Venezuelan. Very nice guy, very nice house. He was supposed to meet me there at 9 o'clock. I had all the materials on site, but the guy didn't show up until like 4 in the afternoon. And I'm like, I got to get all these windows done by myself today in a very... It wasn't the nicest house. Like, it's not like working in Ponte Vedra, but the guy was very proud of what he had. It was very clean. Like, listen, man, don't come in here with your shoes on. Like, lay down drop cloths type of deal. My Venezuelan friend read the sign, and at the end of the day, it was like 9 o'clock at night. He's like, you ever thought about doing this for yourself? I said, no, I can't do that. You're a worthless failure. You'll never amount to anything. I can't do that. He's like, oh, I think you can. Right?
The homeowner said that to you?
Homeowner said that. Right? It was very prophetic. So it's one of those things. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. And I went home to my wife and I said, hey, do you believe in me? She said, I think you can do anything you want to do. And I said, all right, cool. Good talk. And
that was the end of
it. That was it. But again, it was just because in my head, I'm hearing, yeah, you're never going to do anything. So that next day, I went out and I bought this box truck. And I said, if I don't do this now, I'm going to talk myself off the ledge every opportunity I get. This is 2005. And so we pushed papers on that truck. I drove it home, parked it in the driveway, and I said, now I just have to have this talk with employer. And I sat down with him. I said, I appreciate everything you do, everything you've done. I think it's time for me and my point to kind of venture out on my own. I will work for you just as hard for two months. And he just loses his cool because now his cash cow is out the door. He didn't train up anybody else. And anyway, we have this very dynamic conversation back and forth to the point of at the end of the conversation, I said, that whole 2 month, what we're going to do is I'm just going to take my tools now and we're going to call it good. And then it was just like hyperdrive. You better not do that. I'll make sure you don't do this. And I'm going to cut off your knees so you can't do that. And I said, cool, do whatever you want to do. I remember going into the agency that we were getting a lot of this, our lead vendor. And I sat down in the office thinking, what am I going to do? Tony, Mr. Wingate will see you. I go in there. I said, hey, Peter, how are you? Tony, how's it going? I heard you and John had kind of a fallout. I said, stuff like that happens. And he says, don't worry. We'll keep you busy. And I said, copy that. And I hit the ground running. And every time... And this is why I feel a lot of situations are prophetic. The trying to get me kicked out of school, trying to get me fired from my job, trying to hold my head underwater because I was a legal runaway. Rinse and repeat. Less than 10 years later. And I'm like, been there, done that. And I just kept my head down, kept working. I had a very, very good business through this program for the elderly. Low income and elderly, I said 90% of it was low income and 10% of it was elderly. I loved working for that 10%. The 90% was very tough because that low income was a very gray zone. So, at the time we lived a very modest life, my wife and I. We had just, started a business, doing the best we can. I didn't know what my numbers were, but I'm just working, man. You feed me the work and I will knock it out. And you're going in these homes, low income, like, people have like an 80-inch screen TV, BMW in the driveway. And I'm not judging, not at all. But when they got their feet up on the couch playing video games all day, I had a lot of moral conflict with that. So it was about that time I got approached by a larger company who it was owned by two IT guys. And they cashed out their 401ks and they built this mega company that was working for a lot of these agencies. And they said, what we're doing is not working. We need to bring in somebody who's an expert in their field, who's the golden boy for the weatherization trade in our region. And I don't say this to be prideful. I'm just explaining the story, and all fingers pointed to me. So they approached me, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of happy. I barely work 40 hours a week. We're killing it. My employees are healthy, happy. I mean, I don't know. I'll think about it. And at the time, you know, my wife and I, we had just miscarried our second child. So that was like a real hard thing for me. I know it was harder for her. I didn't know how to deal with it. And I said, maybe it's time for me to start looking at other options and, you know, go into more of a managerial role and stop doing the work myself. So I took these guys up on this offer. And, you know, we started with 28 employees.
So what was the offer?
The offer was bring in your company, merge with us. We will give you equity 1/3. I said, okay, well, what's your numbers? Oh, that looks great. You know, but meanwhile, I never really saw what their debt was, you know? And so I was guns a-blazing. Man, I can fix, there's a redemptive purpose in everything. I'm going to make this thing a pot of gold. So, you know, liquidated my business into them, third equity into this monstrosity, and 28 employees that all had company cards, all had, you name it. I'm thinking, this is a bad equation. You guys have no idea how much money's going out. Yeah, but we're making so much money. And you go out into the warehouse, there's like 500 windows that were custom ordered that are all wrong sizes. And you're like, how does this happen? Like, that's a lot, but we're making so much money. I'm thinking, I don't think you guys are making as much as you think you're making. And so lo and behold, all of that rat race caught up with them. And one by one, these lead vendors started cutting them off. So they had no work. And they had 28 employees, and they had all just outgo. And so I said, okay, what we need to do is we need to start cutting the head off the snake. It was like the essence of top 5, bottom 5, but it was more like top 50%, bottom 50%. Top 50% stay, bottom 50%, you guys are out the door. Thanks, but no thanks. And I was the bad dad. And they were always playing good parent versus bad parent. And so over the course of 18 months, going back to a skeleton crew and rebuilding that business was, we got back in with these lead vendors. We started other programs. They started an HPC, home performance company, and also the IICs that were sistering out. And I realized all that effort and work that I was putting into it, again, rinse and repeat, they were taking steps out. You know, we're family guys, we're this. And I'm like, sure. But family guys don't keep change of clothes in the closets over there. Like, you know, and where'd you hire this back office admin? She was a stripper. I'm like, huh? And you start putting together these pieces thinking, okay, I've got a big conflict with our core values, right? And I'm okay with that if I can work past it. But I couldn't work past it because every time you're starting to build this company, they're doing other things like, you know, we can barely make payroll.
They're cutting the legs out from under you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they can't give guys bonuses, but they're $7,000 bar tab at Christmas parties. And I'm thinking, that's not how you build a team. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, came out of that fairly clean. You know, they ended up selling and liquidated all my stuff and hit the ground running in 2011. I'm sorry, I'm not giving accurate dates. And if this...
So how long were you by yourself before you merged with that company?
End of 2005 till 2009, late 2009.
Okay. And then how long were you with those people?
18 months.
Wow.
18 months. So we were able to consolidate, rebuild, and then the revenue fivefold. Very successful. But at the same time, what it was doing, it was costing my lifestyle. And I don't want to say my lifestyle. It was costing my entire aura.
Took everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would come home. My daughter was born, and I went back to work the next day. You know, which isn't that big of a deal. You're called to work, but you go from working 40 pretty flexible hours, you're there for everything, to 90 hours of craziness that you can't even scroll through to get to yesterday's phone calls or texts because everything is just chalked out. The i3 could only hold so much information. And I know exactly what the turning point was for me when I just said, okay, enough's enough. I came home for dinner one night, which was very rare, sitting at the table, and my son's just like, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. So he was, 2008, 2010, just 2.5, 3 years old. And all I can picture is this guy who was a cancer to our team, and he was just so naggy, and everybody tiptoed around it. And I couldn't compartmentalize, so I'm having this conversation with this guy, and he's just going off out of something insignificant, and my son is just like he's fighting for my attention. So desperately just wants me to pay attention to him. And I just snapped. I said, this is not me. I can't live like this. I cannot give everything to this team that is going to eat me alive and throw my family to the wayside. And so I went in and said, hey, guys, my ship is set in sail. Like, I'll give you to the end of the year, and I'm resigning. Close all the doors. Hey, you need to think about this. That's like a big mistake. And I said, I'm not a 19-year-old with a lawnmower. Like, you guys approached me. I have a lot at stake here. I have a lot to take out. Like, yeah, but I said, and it was this leveraging act, and I think along the lines, what they were trying to do, and again, I'm not trying to villainize them. I'm just trying to give my opinion is, we have these back office admins. Hey man, you guys aren't getting along. Just go out for a drink on us. I'm like, no, if I'm going out, I need to be taking my wife out. I need to be going home. It's 9:30 on a Friday night. Oh, you mean, just relax. You're so wound tight. I said, anyway, long story short, my next trip after that conversation was to a lawyer, and I put down a pretty hefty retainer that says, all I want to do is take my ball and go home. And he's like, copy that. Sent it to him. I said, whew. They got that letter in the mail, and they were so offended. But I said, you guys had already had legal counsel, so all I was doing was trying to protect myself. And what was happening in the background was I was trying to get an exit strategy in a healthy way. I was working through a lot of these vendors, setting up huge projects and saying, hey, come the first of the year, I'm going to be handing the baton off to some other people, and this is what we're going to be doing. And they're like, Tony, we don't want to work with anybody else. I said, well, it's not in the cards. That's what I have to do. I don't have a non-compete, but it's the honorable thing. They said, listen, if you don't do this job, no one's going to do it. I'm like, okay. And these were very significant jobs. So come 2011, first of the year, I took what I could and moved on. And I tell you what, we hit the ground running on level 12 for the next 10, 11 years. And what would happen is, because I was such a team player, I picked top 5 of their employees who, I bought into these guys. Loyalty, respect, integrity, you name it. Like, okay, you're sick, not a problem. It's your son's birthday, not a problem. I will cover those bases for you. Company credit cards not working, don't worry. Tony's swiping his personal credit cards. There's $500 worth of fuel. Like, whatever it took to keep that ball going down the field. And so those guys understood that. So then there was a waiting list. Tony, do you need any help? I said, no, guys, roster's full. There was very little turnover. There were some headaches. Any entrepreneur is going to have these growing pains, but for the most part, the fluid of leadership, again, this creed that I live by, lead when called upon, follow when you must, was just the fluidity of leadership. Unfortunately, I kind of muddied that water between employer, mentor, and friend, right? So guys could talk to me like I was just some dirt bum. But long story short, come towards the end, it was 2020, and this little thing called COVID happened. And we were working in the Northeast, and the situation at hand was the utilities which were providing all of our work. And when I say that, I was explaining to Matt the other day, one of the hardest things for me in PDR was having to sell yourself and put yourself out there and network and everybody get to know me. With my previous business, it was just, you look the utilities way, and they're like, we got you. Boom. Overload of 75 jobs. Okay, and now what you're doing is you're looking through these jobs saying, these are very profitable, these aren't, no, we'll take 30. And in a blink of an eye, you're booked out for 6 or 8 months. Just that easy. You know, too good to be true. And so, you know, come COVID, they said, hey, we're shutting this thing down. I said, cool. Just let me know when you want to fire it back up. Because, I mean, things are golden brown. You know, I'll go down to Florida, volunteer some time, hang out down there, visit some people I haven't seen in a while. It's March. Come back and, you know, 4 weeks. Oh, what a great vacation. Yeah, we're not fired back up yet. I said, say what? How long is this thing going to last? 18 weeks. And I said to my guys, listen, everyone, that's it for me. This is a young guy's game. I played these utility nonsense and the drama and everything that goes into running and operating a business. I'm just kind of done. And I know exactly what happened, and maybe it sounds nonchalant, but I'm driving to work every day. You know, I leave this amazing property on 8 acres with this beautiful house that we restored, this amazing driveway, and I'm like, all I want to do is spend time with my family. My kids are growing up. I want to share so much wisdom with them, but I've dumped so much into my guys and my business and all this cool stuff. I'm kind of overwhelmed. And I remember one day just walking out of the shop, seeing the boats and the vehicles and the overland stuff, and I just said, that view sucks. I'm just done. The utilities just drained it right out of me, you know? And I went home to my wife and said, hey, sell it all. And the look in her face was like, but we're so comfortable. Can we afford to do that? I said, I can't afford not to. And we started liquidating and just getting rid of everything. And that was one of the first times in about 7 years, about 2 weeks after that, that I took my blood pressure and it was just normal.
Amazing.
You know? And, I mean, there was a lot going into that. I mean, we were cranking. We bought another property. You know, we rehabbed that thing, moved into that. And then we found an opportunity to have a rental property on the coast. We bought that. And there's a lot that went into that decision. And a great week, amazing quarter. And I get a phone call from my wife. Hey, we're down at the property at the beach. Did you wash the floors before you left here last time? I said, why are they dirty? She's like, there's water everywhere. I said, what? Dishwasher line blew 10 days after we closed, catastrophic flood. I'm like, why me? You know, it's every time you start to feel comfortable, like, we're killing it. She's like, hey, do you mind spreading your legs so I can kick you directly in the nuts? Quote, life. And so I said, I'm just done, man. I want to spend some time with my family. And told my guys, hey, man, we're gonna wrap up this year. It's been awesome, so start making other plans. And it took about 6 months to finish up our queue. And then when that queue was over, you still had the residual clients like, can you? Like, no. And I'm like coming out of retirement, bringing my guys back to try to complete these jobs out of loyalty to all these clients that you've had for the past 11 years. And people say, well, you know, it's a one-off. I said, no, man, I'm doing generational work. You know, I had this doctor one time that said, everybody comes to me as clients, but I have the opportunity to have friends when they leave. And I'm like, that's a pretty powerful statement, Dr. Rao. And he was like a world-class cardiovascular surgeon. And he drove a Honda Civic. And I remember there after surgery number 3, I'm laying there in that bed and I come to and I see the silhouette.
You had 3 heart surgeries?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Not cardiovascular. Vascular. Did I say cardiovascular?
I don't know.
Sorry,
Yeah.
scratch that. Edit swipe. It was he was a vascular surgeon, so it had nothing to do with the heart. Everything to do with just blood flow. I actually had 10 surgeries that year, in 2012, on my right arm. I got caught in a tow rope wakeboarding, and it did a muscle
Okay, I've heard
degloving,
this.
and it was pretty
You did a
awesome.
what?
Muscle degloving. What had happened was the tow rope. Man, I'm all over the place. I apologize for that.
No, it's good.
But it was the day after my son's birthday, and my buddy had a lake house, and I was an avid wakeboarder. He had a boat. It was his boat, his lake, his tow rope. A lot of weird things for me that I didn't grow up wakeboarding like a lot of these dudes who were just could adapt to any platform, adapt to a different wake. I was like, I can ride my boat at 82 feet at 24.5 miles per hour. That's my jam. So we're towing behind his boat, and the perfect pass, which is essentially a GPS for a marine vessel, goes out. So he's using his phone. And I'm like, man, I feel like we're going a little bit faster. So I'm like, slow down. And he's like, oh, we're good. I'm like, okay, well, it says we're good. And every time I go out, it's a very small lake. So you could get like 4 passes both ways and then double up and then back around until your arms were too tired. But I feel like every time I cut out, the rope would stretch so much and it would catapult me in. I'm like, no big deal. Until we're coming by his house, and it's a big party, and I'm like, man, I'm going to boot this wake and do the sickest radical air maneuver people have ever seen. And I remember cutting out and just coming in, leaning back on my heels, and I'm like, dude, I'm coming at that wake, and I'm like, this doesn't feel good. I come off, and I go to pass the rope behind my arms. I'm like, this isn't right. Now I'm off axis, and I'm not trying to be off axis. I'm this like tucked 3 kind of guy. I'm not trying to go tweaky and I just, now the tow rope has laced itself all the way up to my bicep, and I hit the water and I just feel something thump, and I gingerbread man, and I come to a stop, get to the surface, and my arm is just an electrifying on fire, and I look at it as it's ballooning up, and I'm like, turn around, and I pat my head. Like, I'm done, come get me. And now I'm looking at my arm, and I'm like, I think it might just be my elbow out of socket. So I'm like trying to pop it back in, like nurse's elbow, trying to turn it, and I'm like, it's not going back in. What the heck? Boat comes back. I'm like, hey, I broke my arm. They're like, oh, man, that sucks. Get me on the boat. And I'm like, dude, that's gnarly looking. That's bad. I mean, it is just rolly, lumpy. Get back to shore, and my wife's like, that didn't look too good. I'm like, hey, you're going to have to call an ambulance. This is pretty bad. So call the ambulance, and the guy, my buddy driving the boat, he's like, we saw you hit the water. We turned around, and something came by our face. What would happen was there was so much slack and spring in the tow rope that once I hit and it thumped me through the water, it ricocheted and went the opposite way past their heads. So ambulance comes, and paramedics are there and like, hey, man, we can't find a pulse. I'm like, big deal. Like, do your job. I don't care. Just get me to the hospital. Down all these bumpy lake roads. There's never a paved road when someone lives on the water. They pay millions of dollars for these houses, and they're all like third world country roads in an ambulance. And, man, I'm in such pain. We get to the hospital. And they say, hey, what happened to your arm? We explain it to them. They're like, it's the summer. You guys are probably being crazy. Long story short, they put me on the pain meds immediately. They saw the discomfort. And I remember hearing, well, we're going to try to save the arm, but we can't make any promises. I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for that guy. Like, mine's just broke. I'm so thankful it's just broke. Meanwhile, current time, that was the doctor trying to explain to my wife. He's like, we are on borrowed time. He was a UMass doctor that just happened to be on call and got the call to just come on in and take a look. And so he did, and he's the reason why I have an arm. You do a case study anywhere else in the country at that, 2012, it's immediate amputation. Like, your arm's never going to recover. So they do an emergency fasciotomy, which I apologize for the technical terms that I'm botching, but they basically slice me from my wrist all the way up my arm, hung me out to dry to kind of promote that blood flow and lack of whatever was going on. The muscles swelled up so much, it just cut off circulation, and my arm was just dying. And so they went in and tried to clean up my arm, surgery after surgery after surgery after. The first 3, and I remember Dr. Rao sitting there in the shadows, and then I'm out again, and my wife said, at 3 a.m. after that next surgery, he walked me out to my car. And I'm like, that's an amazing dude. So long story short, you get the staff coming in, you get all the orthopedics that says, hey, you know, we got the arm, it's saved, but you're going to have a noodle. You need to start focusing on your left arm as your primary arm. And I'm like, I got a business. Like, we're booming. I'm trying to do admin stuff in between surgeries, like trying to like keep it together, doing paperwork and calling and scheduling because my guys were still working, you know? And what's life look like with one arm? Not very good. So I said, no, this is not me. So I remember at one point, like I could wiggle a finger. I said, oh, so you're telling me there's a chance? And, you know, I said, screw this. I started putting a pen in my hand and forcing it to write and forcing it to move. And surgery after surgery after surgery after PT. And the doctor's like, you're recovering like really fast. My wife would come 3 times a day with food. I'd see the kids. I'd eat the food. It wasn't hospital food. It was like legitimate protein and calories and water intake. And the nurse would come in like, hey, you should sell your pee-pee. I said, what do you mean? Your pee-pee is pure. You should sell it. I'm like, people do that? Oh, yeah, make big money. I said, I'll think about that.
What?
So it's all, maybe that was...
For drug tests?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Maybe that's a medically induced conversation that I had.
Yeah, maybe that's what happened.
Part hallucination.
Long story short, you know, a lot of surgeries in that year. Oh man, I left the hospital 14 days in. I said, I can't stay here anymore. This is a hopeless event. And they released me. And I went home and I said, I shouldn't be here either. I can't function. But during one of those visits with the surgeon, he said, I know your type. There are no limitations. I said,
Wow.
I got you.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'm doing everything I can. Day 28, I had...
So that gave you hope. That
gave me a lot of hope
Yeah.
because you have all these doctors saying, don't do this. You're never going to. And I said, no, I can. I really think I can. And no, you're not. That's what all of our studies show for this guy, Dr. Rao, to say, no, just do whatever you normally do. I'm like, okay.
That's crazy.
So I went out surfing. I had like 13 staples that when I took my wetsuit off, all the staples had ripped out. And my wife's like, what are you doing? I said, he told me no limits.
Doctor's order.
You know? And that was one of the best. You know, we had a booming business, and now everything's on the Ritz. I got all these medical bills. I got all of the stress. I look back, that was the best time of my life. I had a kid who was 5 and a daughter. My son was 5, my daughter was 3, relatively speaking. And it brought us so close together because we needed each other so desperately. I needed my wife like you would not believe. And people were, that must have been
Like your right arm, huh?
Yeah. Must have been the worst time in your life. I said, that was actually the best times of my life. And, you know, I had this occupational therapist and this PT guy who wasn't a believer. And you know, I would go to him while there was that golden window. Insurance wouldn't cover the PT. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, you know, you're 6 weeks out. I'm like, 6 weeks? I can't do that. I'd go work with this guy, and he'd say, you know, people naturally heal. I'm like, okay, cool. People heal faster when they're being prayed for. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting concept. He said, people heal exponentially faster when they know they're being prayed for. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, that's a proven fact.
Wow.
Medically proven fact. So there we were. So all that aside, I mean, I was in Texas for 14 weeks and took off my shirt, and this one dude's always wearing a hat. I'm like, why are you always wearing a hat? He's like, because I'm self-conscious because I'm bald. I'm like, really? That's a thing? He's like, yeah, I've worn a hat for 15 years of my life. And I'm like, but I don't have a bicep. They cut it out. I mean, what's the big deal? He's like, what? You don't have a bicep? I said, you've never taken a look at my arm? He's like, no. Nobody. I'm like, how can you not see the scar? How can you not see this arm? Right? But it just goes to the testimony of like, for something that big is like a life-altering injury. For my family, it was just a little hiccup, back on the road, get down, you know? It was never a setback of what you can't do. It was just like, and I don't use it as like a trophy, like, oh, well, look at this one. It's more along the lines of like, listen, man, don't tell me what I can't do. Or maybe do tell me what I can't do because I'm going to make you eat those words.
Yeah.
And humble pie, like coming from T-Bone, don't taste too good. But man, I got stories all day long.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to like.
So you're healing up. Your business is still rolling.
Yeah, it's booming.
What year is this?
2012.
2012. Okay.
Yep.
So you said that you brought it up to COVID.
Up to COVID, and then
2020.
2020. Even Stevie Wonder didn't see that coming.
Shut it down.
Shut it down. That was it. And we got to 2021 and sold off all the equipment, sold off all the equity, sold everything.
So 2020 was basically ended your business?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So you didn't sell your business.
Well, I sold
You just
a lot.
liquidated
I sold a lot of the equipment and everything else. So basically, when it came down to my specific niche of business, what is it worth? It's worth real estate. Anybody can go in, flash flood the market with equipment and manpower and contacts and get contracts. That was not a valuable source. The valuable source was an equitable piece of real estate that they could either rent out or turn it into something else or off that. So, yeah, long story short, I didn't have that. And in the end game, I mean, we were living very comfortably and had rolled the dice on a lot of things and done pretty well. You know, with this property at the beach and the amount of work that it needed after the catastrophic flood, I said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to take how long it takes to just fix this thing up, make it awesome. And that I did, but it took, 3 years to do.
No way.
Yeah. And not only to mention that, but with the way our economy was, everything was 4 times more expensive.
Yeah.
Right? So plywood, $120 a sheet. Give me 2 pallets. I need it. What am I going to do? You know, every nail, every fastener, every piece of drywall. So, I mean, we were beyond studs. There was a lot of structural stuff that I had to do. And I did it all myself, you know, because I was a really handy man. And so I wrapped that up. And I remember talking to my wife. I said, hey, you know, we used to build these cool rigs, vans, and overland stuff. I just saw online that Chris is going to try to off this van that he built. I need you to go into the safe and get me X. She's like, oh, yeah, about that. I said, what? She's like, you might want to start finding something else to do. We're going to need that money. I'm like, since when do you tell me no? You know? And so I made a list. I made a list of 7 things that I'm like, pie in the sky, this is what I want to do. And I started to noodle around with this list, and a lot of them came to reality. I'd aged out, my body's too broken off, whatever the excuse or thing might be, and it came down to 2. And one of those, you know, as I'm thinking about Matt, you know, we'd been friends all these years, and, you know, I knew what you were doing, and I said, at this point in my life, we have a specific economy, you know, in a certain way that we live with the freedoms that a business would require. I think I might start doing dents. She's like, what does that look like? I said, I don't know. But this would be just another business. You know, we had 4 businesses already. How hard could this be? And she said, why don't you call Matt? I said, Matt's so busy. I'm not going to bother this guy. You know, I'm going to work on the house and I'll figure this out both at the same time. And she's like, what if somebody was starting a business within your niche, how would you feel if they didn't tell you? I said, oh, man, I'd be pretty upset. Well, you should call Matt. I'm like, Matt's busy. But you know what? I think the story goes, I mean, you can fact check me on this. I left Matt a voice text. I said, hey, man, just wondering how you're doing. Wondering if you want to call me back. And got some stuff on my brain. Maybe you could shoot some holes in it. And I think it was like within 4 or 5 hours, you called me back. And you said to me...
I wasn't too busy.
No, you were. You were. But I think that was the value of friendship, you know? And you said, hey, if that's what you want to do, there is like the biggest thing in PDR going on this weekend. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I said, okay, well, I'll look into it. You told me what to look for, and it was MTE in Orlando. So by Wednesday, I had a plane ticket, I had a hotel, I had a rental car, and okay, I'll just go down there and check it out, you know? So I went down there, met you, signed up for a bunch of classes, and one of the classes was the stain liner clinic on the educational day, and I'm sitting there. It is, dude, elbow to elbow with people, and I'm a pretty wise man. You can read character. You know who's who in the zoo, right? You know the hierarchy of like who's meeting and greeting and who everybody wants to mingle with, and so you're reading the scheme. You're like, okay. You start to see some heavy hitters and some, and people were very like. It was a very interesting thing. I had absolutely no idea what was going on, what they were talking about.
He's not a dent guy yet. You hadn't done any training. Like, you just bought a plane ticket.
Like twisted paper clips. What's the whole story? And it was the first thing of the morning, and everybody is just jazzed up. And there was this one guy in the front. His name was Kevin, and he asked a question. He's like, I'm a beginner. And for 3 months, you know, I've been able to do some pretty good dents. And what's your thought on this and technique on that? And I'm like, okay, yep. Class is over, 90 minutes. I said, Kevin, what's up, man? How are you? I'm Tony. Nice to meet you. He says, hey, how's it going? I said, oh, so you're just starting with this? I'm like, again, I'm assessing him. Very clean-cut guy. Shake his hand. I'm like, that is a soft hand. Right? Because, you know, calloused hands are calloused hands. Firm handshake is a firm handshake. He didn't have that. So I said, for 3 months. So what did you do before that? He's like, oh, I was high up in Whole Foods. I said, Whole Foods? Like, he's like, yeah. I said, well, how did you get into this? He's like, I had a car collection, and I would have this guy come in and do PDR for me. And then I would just watch him. I was so amazed. And I told my wife, like, you know, I just don't feel fulfilled. So I'm going to retire and do this thing called PDR. And I said, copy that. I was like, I catch your drift, man. You know, I'm like, that was it. And so Matt had given me, you know, a line item list of like, this is something you need to look for. So, dude, I'm just going through grocery shopping. Tool list. Yeah. You know, and I'm like, give me 2 of those, give me 1 of those. I don't even know what it does. Give me that whole set. You know, and pack it all up, get it home. And I'm like, what am I going to do with all this? Like sitting there scratching my head. You know, I was a contractor my whole life. Put me with 160 hammers. I can explain to you the designated thing for every hammer. Totally different situation with PDR. You know, and I'm looking all this stuff. Like, I remember I bought a rat rod, right? And one of these Spurges, and I was running recessed lights throughout my house. All the drywall was, you know, I'd already insulated drywall. Now I'm doing the finished electrical. I'm home free because I had this idea of PDR, but it had to sit on the back burner because I'm still plugging away at this house 12, 16 hours a day. So there was no time to dedicate to this new craft. So I'm like, I can't reach the wire. What the? Wait a minute. Grab the rat rod. And I fish that wire and I pull it right down. I'm like, heck yeah, that thing's pretty nice.
Many uses.
And
awesome.
Yeah, so, you know, came down here and did some training with you, put it in my head, had all my notes from February, and it just had to simmer.
So you went to MTE before you trained with Matt?
Absolutely. Yeah. Went to MTE in February.
That's where I met you for the first time.
And which is weird because we network with a lot of the same people, I just
Yep.
never knew who you were. I've heard your name 100 times. And I'm like, you know, there's a lot of people in your community, in your culture there
Yeah.
that I've heard, but I've never laid eyes on them.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, when it all starts coming together, you're like, that makes a lot of sense. You know?
So that was January-ish, end of January,
Yep.
beginning of February, MTE. And then you trained with me in March.
That was actually February 3rd, I believe, that year, 2023,
Okay.
somewhere around there. And then trained with you in March, you know, for a week, took all that knowledge and, okay, I'm going to work on some of this stuff. As soon as I got home, went to the junkyard, got a hood, and then set it up in my garage with the hood stand that I bought off you and said, I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, and what I would do is I made this apparatus with a golf ball and a hammer and just said,
Golf ball.
so whack. I'm like, okay, here we go. Push, 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 poke, poke, poke. Ooh, yikes. But it looks good from this angle. So, you know, put it all on the back burner until September of 23, which the whole house was done, and was able to just focus directly on PDR, and that's where...
So did you sell it?
I'm sorry?
Did you sell the house?
No, we still live there currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the house at the beach?
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking for a property, a 6-bedroom, 4-bath, I mean, I'll cut you a deal.
So the house that flooded, that's the house you live in now?
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. And it's a beautiful house. It's an amazing property with a great community. But again, redemptive purposes, that things come full circle. And so there we are, finished house, and now we're starting a new business from scratch with just an idea and a desire.
So did you have a different house, or you were living in that house the whole time you were fixing it up?
So the house is pretty large for beach Narragansett standards. It had an in-law that I rehabbed first. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in-law. So we go from living in this roughly 4,000 square foot house down to 900 square feet.
Nice.
You know, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, there's no hiding here. Like, I know everything. Clean the bathroom. I know it's dirty type of deal. So that gave us a little bit of opportunity to get out of the dust and for me to compartmentalize as I was rehabbing that other side.
Okay. So you had this period of time where after you trained with Matt, that you were still focused on the house, and then you finished the house, and now you're focused on PDR.
Yeah. And it again, like me, obsessively, right? So then it was just like everything I do will be compulsive until I can get this going. Like it was, if you can get flash burns from a PDR light, I got those.
In your eyeballs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You know? Yeah, I was doing everything so intensely that, you know, I remember trying to do some local training and, you know, that got me so far. It wasn't the right fit. And I'm just in my garage. I'm going to the junkyard paying $2 a day to get in, to noodle around on beat cars just to try to figure this out. And I called Matt up and like, dude, I'm not getting this. I thought this was going to be easy. And he's like, come on down. Come on down. I believe I came down in October, end of October, almost until November. I remember being home for Thanksgiving, right? And that helped me get a gauge on speed, consistency, and I was absolutely blown away. I'm looking at this panel and I'm thinking, Axis, Mac just walks by, throws the toys, I try that. I'm like, huh? How do you know these things? Right? You know, where does this second nature come from? When does this like aha moment click? Because I'm not getting this at all. You know, it was like these ninjas that just like they ooze talent, and I'm this poser trying to keep up, showing up with the blind skateboard and the Vans with, you know, that are perfectly laced, saying like, hey, can I ride your skate park?
I think you just came at it. You thought it was going to be easier than it was. I mean, that was like you were eager to get into it, and you kind of had this like, I got this kind of attitude as far as like, I'm going to figure this out, and then it just reality came calling, and it was brutally hard. And I mean, there is an aha moment, I think, for people, and it's hard to detect when that is. And I think it's different for everybody. But I think there's a scientific thing where these neural pathways actually connect. You know, where you're doing this thing, but it's not making sense, and then at some point things connect, and then it's like, I understand now. And so, for you, I mean, you obviously were distracted with doing your home, and I mean, I wouldn't say you're a high strung guy, but you're a very high energy guy, and you've got I think it just took getting that house off your plate for you to really, because it takes a lot, man. As far as like PDR is, it takes a certain amount of I don't know what the word is, but brain capacity.
Most definitely.
And I think it just took getting that house off your plate and then coming back down here, and then over time, I mean, it obviously took, man. I mean, as far as the PDR, the skill, it's obviously there's neural pathways finally connected, and he came down the once for the initial training, and we did, and then he, like I said, went back home and did the house. Then he came back in October. We did like another on the job training. Apprentice like just kind of followed me around and watch him and coach him, and then
Is that when you came and hung out with me that one day?
Yes.
yeah.
And not to discredit that at all. That was still very revolutionary for me, because here I'm hanging out with James and he's just like noodling around, like doing his thing. And I'm like, how can you do that and hold a conversation at the same time? Like, I'm struggling to just even see what's going on. I got the stack of tools and everything's nice and clean. And I'm looking at James. He's just like, just another day. Easy peasy. And I'm like, it's blowing my mind. But that entire year, like as I was traveling, doing events and things, every waking moment was researching and watching videos. I was in California to do an event, and I stopped in at a body shop, hooked up with a PDR guy there, traveled with him for a few days. As I worked my way into New Mexico, same thing there. As I was here, I would constantly be seeking out. I mean, I remember one time I was in line about to start an event. It was 5 o'clock a.m. and I'm watching a Jim Mitchell video. I'm just like, this event's going to suck, but at least this thing can carry me through. Right? At least I have something to think about for the next 7 hours of this punishment I'm about to ensue in. But every molecule was just like, I've got to figure this out. There's no backup plan at this point. I'm already committed. And it was more the verbal and accountability. Like, Tony's not a job jumper. Tony commits, and there's a high standard of expectation, and more along the lines of accountability out of respect. Matt and James and all these other people who put any amount of time into me, it would just be a kick in the nuts if I said, yeah, this isn't for me. It's not going to work. So you have to grind it out.
Yeah.
You
brought a certain tenacity to it. I mean, I think that's what has made you successful thus far, is just that never give up, no quit, just
We'll eventually figure this out.
water on rock.
I'm gonna figure it out.
Water on rock, constantly, every day, just wearing it down until something breaks. And I mean, it breaks a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys who get into it, think it's going to be easy, and it's just not. I mean, and you got to have that tenacity to just nope, and never give up and just keep going. And so last year was your first. So we're just gonna 2000 into 23 was you came back down,
right.
Things connected, you go back home, and I remember you were, writhing your hands, itching to get it going again. And Hale, obviously, it was off season, nothing was happening, and you just could not wait. And so when did you started making some phone calls trying to connect again? Mm-hmm. I think January you come back down to MTE.
Yes.
And you helped me out at the booth.
Right.
And that was tremendous. And you were totally had a different set of eyes than you did the first MTE, where you understood what you were doing and the lingo and the tools, and then you started making connections with some of the guys on the hill side of things, like Extent.
Yeah, everybody and anything, and I don't want you guys to think like any bit of advice that you gave never fell on deaf ears. It was always check. I have a black notebook with notes going back to who I met at the first MTE to current day, like Dent, the strategy, the fix, the repair, the AAR process to break all this stuff down. And it's notating, improving. And so you had mentioned, when maybe reach out to this company and put your name on the list. So I sent a really nice email, got on the list. James said, hey, there's this guy around your neck of the woods named David White. You might want to contact him. I went, reached out to David White as soon as I got home, sat down with him. And you're starting to network with these dudes that are amazing guys, And so I'm becoming my garage hero, right? I'm like, man, this hood's awesome. Working through this, it looks kind of wonky, but I think that's going to be cool, And David White gives me a call and says, hey, I got this hood that we're going to scrap. If you want to come over and like take a ride on it and noodle around. I said, yes, finally a chance to be able to prove myself, right? Like, I'm the garage hero.
How far from your house is his shop?
About an hour and a half with no traffic.
Okay.
So not too bad.
You
know?
That's good.
And bring my tools and everything, and he shows me this hood, and I'm, wow, oh my gosh, this is, yeah, see what you can do, man. I'm here if you need me. Like, awesome, man. I plant my feet, get comfortable. I'm at this light. My feet did not move. 8 hours. And I'm just like, and Dave would walk by patiently. Need any help? Got any questions? Nope, man, because I didn't want to look like a complete idiot.
But he's looking at what you're doing. He knows exactly what's going on.
He knows. And, the silence was intimidating. And I remember, dude, I didn't fix, but a beach ball, not even a beach ball, I wouldn't even consider it fixed. I worked on a beach ball size section. My tools were all there, and I'm just.
What kind of car was it off of?
It was a BMW.
Aluminum.
Oh. Navy blue.
Replaced.
You know that hood, huh?
Oh, yeah.
You'll never forget it.
I would love to track that hood.
You should keep it.
Fix half of it and hang it. And I just remember at the end of the day, like, loading up all my tools. He's like, so you coming back? I said, well, I can't tomorrow, but I'll be back Thursday. And the whole ride home, just feeling so defeated, thinking like, I feel like that was a shot. So I felt the disappointment. I felt the defeat. And I said, how can I even go back? Like, I'm so embarrassed. But you know what? Thursday morning, I woke up, 4 o'clock, took a hot shower, morning routine, and drove there. Rinse and repeat. And I'm very thankful for a guy like Dave who just like, you know what, man? Maybe you're not good at this now, but you might have what it takes, And, it wasn't too long after that. Again, going home, 16-hour days in my garage, moving stuff around. I'm like, okay, this isn't. And I remember getting a call from a company, Extent, and said, could you be in Houston on the 28th? And I'm like, oh my gosh, doesn't give me much time. Packed up all my tools, kissed my wife goodbye. I said, I'm heading to Houston. 28 hours straight. Drove there. A little bit of time to spare, and I remember calling Matt and said, dude, this is where it's at. This is what it looks like. What do I expect? And you gave me a rundown. This is how the cars come in. This is how the cars go out. This is how guys are going to be. Get there early, see what tools they're using, try to mimic their carts. Don't use too many tools. Be efficient, be accurate. Okay, awesome. So I spent the next 28 days, 14-hour days straight, just working, head down. And guys are just like blasting through these cars. And I'm lucky to get one car done a day. And people say, I perform better under stress. I said, well, I'll tell you about stress, and I don't go too into depth. I was so stressed. Day 3, I had hemorrhoids the size of grapes. I felt like I was working Easter Sunday to try to make up time, and I felt like I could have sweat blood. I was so stressed because a lot of that was unnecessary pressure on myself. Right?
Yeah.
You're going into an arena where guys know how to perform and how to dance, and you're trying to keep up with jet engines. When you're just a crop duster. And what you need is the experience and you need the reps and pushing. And so I would show up every morning before the sun came up, and I would leave after the sun would go down. Once there was no power on site, so I had to bring in all my own batteries. Once I had no more juice, that's all I could do.
Yeah.
Carry everything back to the hotel, juice it, back in the morning, rinse and repeat. But it wasn't like I was doing, people would say, well, that's a great thing. If he can do it, I can do it. But listen, man, the QC process wasn't just anything would pass. It was pretty strict. And after 28 days, I think I only did 38 cars. 90% of them were all aluminum hood. The damage wasn't too bad. Side panels, pretty slim, so it was all roof and hoods. And not to go too technical, but it was a very wearing experience for me. But stuck to the script, kept my head down and worked. The gig's up. I stayed around a little bit longer to try to volunteer and clean up some other cars at, no charge, no bill, just I'm here to help. And okay, that's up. Now go back home. Started going to some wholesale lots, working for that. And I'm like, this is too good to be true. Like, there's more cars to fix. This is awesome. Weather's starting to warm up. And I'm like, just get behind metal, do volume, whatever it takes. Everybody in my neighborhood, hey, man, bring your car over tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to push some dents. I don't have any dents. Don't worry. I'll find them. And I did. And then I'm tapped out. My whole neighborhood's done. Clean, dent-free. I'm like, okay, what next? And I said, Matt, man, really having a hard time, engaging in all this other stuff. And I need to keep, not that I hit a plateau or a climax, but, what's the next step here? And he said, come down. I believe somebody went on vacation or something. So I said, can I come down and help fill in? Yeah, come on down. And I always appreciated coming down because there was the gauge, right? A lot of guys are their hometown hero or their garage hero because there's nothing to gauge or bounce that ball off of. They're like, I'm the man. Well, what happens when you enter a different motocross track from people all over the country? Oh, man, that small town in Arizona ain't too hot anymore.
Yeah.
Well, what happens when you're the small fish in the world's track? There's all these constant checkpoints to get. So I remember coming down here, helping you, and then you had mentioned that you had a buddy in Texas who just got hit. Would you be interested in going over there? I said, well, man, I'm here to help you, man. You make the call. And he said, it'd be a good opportunity for you. I said, if that's what you think is right, then I'll do that. But I'm not going to jump ship on you because there might be a potential opportunity. And so, we said our goodbyes. You shed a couple tears, and I was on my way to just outside of Beaumont, Texas. So I got to Mariana, Florida, 3 hours out of Jacksonville, and all of a sudden, my 6.7 diesel, and I'm like, that doesn't sound good. Now, I left Sunday morning. I had pretty good slotted time, 12-hour drive, good night's sleep. I will be there right on time Monday morning. Well, my truck engine, my CP4 pump exploded, and it was just dead. So I called my wife. I said, we need to figure something out now. The clocks are ticking. I need to go. So she's like, there's no rentals. The best thing you can do is get a U-Haul. I said, line one up. So she's like, okay, this is where you go get it. I said, check. Tow truck driver shows up to tow my truck to a dealership, and I gave him $50 extra. He took me to the U-Haul place, dropped me off. U-Haul place has no U-Haul for me. So I said, listen, tow truck driver already left. You were supposed to secure U-Haul. The next one's 2 hours away. So we drive to that one. They don't have one either. I'm like, I don't want to say anxiety stricken, but I'm like, come on, we got to get this bird in the air. Finally, the third place in very interesting place in Florida provide me with a U-Haul, and I go back to the dealership my truck was towed to, and I load up all the tools that I think I need, and I just redline it, white knuckle to Houston, Texas.
What was the U-Haul?
It was a 20-foot box truck. It was like straight out of Home Alone. The Kenosha Kickers.
John Candy was in the back.
Polka.
No way.
And it was, I'm telling you, man, that 5.4 engine screamed the entire way. I stopped for fuel, and it was right back into the red zone. And I got there. I got 2 hours of sleep, stopped at Chick-fil-A at 6:30 when they opened. And I remember pulling up into Christopher Allen's parking lot with my yogurt and my bowl and said, "Morning, man." Him not knowing any different.
In a U-Haul.
In a U-Haul. You know? But the interesting thing about the whole journey was not putting my problems on somebody else. The excuses never outweigh the responsibility. Like, it was my responsibility to get there regardless of the circumstances, not for me to make why I couldn't. So got there, spent 14 weeks with Christopher Allen, who is the nicest, most genuine dude ever, and really enjoyed my time and did a lot of repairs that, like, thankfully I had the time, right? It wasn't so much of a production horse like the previous X-Dent, you know. I had the
slower pace, retail.
Pace, yeah, and just Chris is a perfectionist to the T. And really gave an opportunity to really perfect stuff and slow down. I could come in on a Sunday and work a rail all Sunday long by myself, which was awesome. With nobody there watching or feeling like I had to compete or keep up with anybody, which is a lot of the head game.
And there were some good techs there too.
Amazing.
There's some
amazing. And
how many techs? Just
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly 6.
okay.
You know, and all just great guys, great team, great camaraderie. Really, really enjoyed myself there, and just thankful for that third-party connection and the time spent. And came home and just went back to the wholesale lots that I had and just kept pushing, just never let off. You know, and then I believe. Got some hail back in Connecticut, and Dave White had me out there and did a few cars for him, and it was an amazing, again, the things coming full circle in a sense of, like, I'm not looking for affirmation, but I'm not that same guy that was standing there for 8 to 10 hours straight, not using the bathroom and just hoping and wishing, thinking. But the beautiful thing was the opportunity to take in that many reps.
Yeah.
You know, and I find these toy drives absolutely amazing. You're telling me when I finish this, there's another one out there that I could do, and they'll just keep coming? Sweet. Can we do this?
So you went and did 2 toy drives, one in Connecticut
Right.
with Dave White at
Right.
one of his dealerships up there, and then you did another one in
Toledo, Ohio.
Toledo
Yeah.
for Jeremy Nadeau.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that, what that looked like.
Well, it's an amazing experience. You know, you got these people coming in and they just have a simple dent. They're donating to a great cause. And then you're surrounded by a bunch of awesome dudes who want to share their talent to give back to their community.
Yeah, so it's just about 20 other handful of
about
other
that.
technicians that show up, and they're just donating their time. People donated a toy
Right.
for Christmas, and if they donate a toy, they get a dent fixed.
Right.
And so it's just a row of cars lined up, and a handful of guys just jumping on cars wherever it is, fixing a dent. And, the feedback we got from some of those guys, James, we're in a text group with some of them, and it was just like,
We've never seen anything
who is
like
this
it.
guy?
I mean, usually a group text with a bunch of Dent guys, people are just ripping each other apart constantly.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's just how it is. It's great. But never have we ever seen anybody get love so much that you got. It was wild.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, dude, Tony, he's the best. He's, like, it was, I've never seen anything like it.
Well, the beautiful thing is like the camaraderie in the PDR community. Everybody that I've noticed is in it for the best interest of everybody else, to help each other out, and to be surrounded by so many great people was just icing on the cake. But the triple threat was I was able to bring my son out with me, and to have him watch, hand me tools, whatever he could do to expedite the process, to say, this is what it takes. He's graduated. Like, what is his career path? What does his life look like after this? So we're trying to foster and investigate that, and to see other dudes, good shape, limber, was really impressive.
Yeah.
And it was awesome to be able to engage with these dudes and say, we all have a lot of really cool core values and similar traits, which is great.
So out of that group text, some guys, we asked them if they had any questions that we could ask you.
Are these
And so-
all anonymous questions?
No, I'll say who said them. Right? They didn't say that.
No, nothing.
Well, Dave White said, you've already really talked about this. This is what he says. Ask him about the reality check he got at my shop when he said he wanted to go chase hail. I gave him an aluminum hood with 300 dents, 8 hours straight, didn't fix a 12-inch square. Came back 2 days later for more. Wouldn't accept defeat. That's when I knew he'd be okay.
And that stuff, like stories like that, I feel I get really excited, because one thing that I've learned, my previous business, you walk into an exhibit, everybody knows who you are. You don't have to speak about your accomplishments. And something like this, you're totally green. But at the same time, I'm very flattered by stuff like that and the opportunities. That's.
Got a bunch of questions. Here's
I'm
another.
sorry, man.
Jeff McMahon, what weren't you prepared for? After your year of chasing hail? And where did you see the most growth?
Man, these are questions I wish I could have pondered on for a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because they're very humbling questions. What weren't you prepared for? I think every day is another. The more you get overconfident is the harder you fall.
I think talking to you through that first year, I would say maybe the thing that showed up unexpectedly, to answer this question, would be some of the mind games that are played.
Absolutely.
Like not other people, but like you play yourself.
Yeah.
When you're in a car, when you're working on a car, when your head's down and you're in this damage, and there's a lot of things swirling around up there, and you have to. Man, everything shows up. The good, the bad, the peaks, the valleys, all these things, and you have to navigate that. And that, to me, is, the hardest part that I found on the hill. And I've seen it destroy dudes, like the mind stuff. Like, great abilities here, but the mind, something happens, and it just folds them. And I think I remember talking about trying to help you navigate some of that. So
At least comprehend and understand, because it was a whole new dilemma for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
And some of the best things out of text and response to questions like that is like, you can't have any emotions when it comes to this. Like good, bad, ugly, negative. Okay, how can you pick up, evolve, and make it better? How do you pivot? If you bring in emotions and say, I know that repair was good. Listen, I don't. So they're giving me their honest opinion. And if I like it or not, I need to take it and grow.
Yeah.
Like I can't, it has nothing to do with feelings. It's like all emotion and feelings are out the window. Just cut it to me and help me improve.
Yeah.
Which it takes a lot of humility to be able to do that. you know?
Do you still have the same long-term goals, or have your long-term goals changed at all after this year?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I know we were talking about this the other day, is like, I don't know if I have any long-term goals, you know? A lot of those things in business, I check those boxes, and I'm just enjoying and appreciating the ride now. I'm not trying to set expectations. I'm a guy that if I set an expectation and if it doesn't hit on the time date as planned, I get real hard on myself. So with this, I just want to focus on getting better, and that's my priority. You know,
Those are good.
yeah.
So are you going to continue to do the same thing? Are you going to chase hail next year, you think?
I don't know, man. I'll do anything.
Yeah.
Is the great thing about chasing hail is you just have the volume of dents.
Yeah.
So if I can push dents for 14 hours a day,
You'll get good.
man, I love it. You know, yeah, I need to stop and take a leak, but other than that, I mean, it's amazing as opposed to just like trying to work on one dent, you know, and that's kind of where my previous field, like we would come in and do 10,000 square foot of a surface area and complete it in a 4-hour period. Now I'm spending, you know, how much time on something this big?
That's a good way to put it.
Another one from Dave White. You got to work in a bunch of different shops. What are are there any differences that stood out to you, or any shops that operate a certain way that was positive that you could talk about?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I think the shop owner, their personality shows in the shop, which is always great. Everyone has a different energy and aura about them, and it's always nice to be and experience that and just really embrace it, you know? But when I'm working in other shops, I'm just a shadow, you know? I'm not hanging out much. I will socialize when the time comes, but I mean, you're not there for me to be social and give therapeutic, you know, conversation. But organization, it's different for everybody. I don't know. That's a hard question. It's really not in my wheelhouse to explain or,
Yeah.
but
Here's one from John Collins. Will we see you in the beginner competition?
I don't believe so.
No, I didn't think
believe
so.
I will be there watching if that's it. Yeah.
Do you have your 80s apparel picked out for the 80s party at MTE?
No.
Kevin Bird asked, do you want to do route work in Tampa?
Tampa's kind of hot, man. But I do want to show Kevin Bird the tow rope handle that wrapped around my arm. Oof. I think with his wake or boater and
slalom
skiing experience, he could really appreciate that.
Make sure you bring it to MT.
Yeah, I will.
From him again, how important do you think networking is?
Oh, networking's huge. Networking's huge. Because I feel very fortunate that, again, all the people that that hey, contact this guy, that third-party introduction was very valuable in a sense of you would not recommend me to a flake, right? An honorable dude with similar core values, with a good work ethic that does quality work. I don't have to go in there and say, that's not going to be the right fit. Who is this guy? Those were invaluable. And I remember even just a time being on the road, I met one guy at MTE, just third-party contact, John Yeager. Awesome dude. Worked with his nephew, Brendan. Awesome dude. And I was passing through, and he had mentioned, hey, I got this house that I rented. Why don't you just come and spend the night and not get a hotel room? I'm like, Tony was like, no, I got my routine. I need my space. I'm cool, man. But something inside said, no, man, dudes need to understand who you are and what you're all about. And they can't see that if you're lurking in the shadows. Like, integrity is one thing when it's expressed, but it's another when it's lived out. Right?
Yeah.
And so that was amazing. Just to listen, man, I showed up, slept for 8 hours, woke up, worked out the door. But it was just that connection of, I'm so flattered to say, hey, man, I don't know you from the next person. I only met you once, but I'm going to throw you a bone. Totally awesome. And I think this whole community is like that. You know, you're at an event and you're doing these dents and someone comes up and says, hey, try this. If the sun's on your light board, just use this. Thanks, man. That really helped. Yeah. It wasn't like, hey, I want to watch him fix this and I'm going to judge the repair when he's done.
Those guys are definitely out there, but they're most of the guys, and especially, you know, that I try to network with or, you know, that we want to be around are those type of guys.
Absolutely. That
are going to help and not judge. And if they are looking over your shoulder, they're trying to give you pointers, and they're not like critiquing. Like they're trying to be helpful. And you know, this community's full of people like that. I mean, it's an amazing community. You know, we're on a group text with how many guys are there? 30, 35 guys now.
I don't even know.
And it's absolutely amazing. And everybody's just trying to help each other. You know, I was describing to Tony, James, like one of the hard things about getting into PDR, you're learning a new skill, which is paintless dent removal, which is extremely hard. A lot of guys are probably starting their own business, which is extremely hard. And then you're trying to be self-motivated, and that's hard. Like, you know, you've got 3 hard journeys individually. They're all individually hard, and you're trying to do all of them at once. So it's, you know,
while keeping your family together.
And I think, you know, part of Tony's success is he's already licked the self-motivated, you know, no one's shaking his bed to get him out of bed in the morning or to, you know, to drive the miles to show up on the job site for him. He's already knows the business side of things, which is, you know, extremely well business owner. And now it's just learning the skills. And I won't say that's easy. I'm not trying to make it sound like it's easy, but in the scheme of things, it's pretty easy, you know, and he's obviously showing that. And so the recipe, all I'm saying, is there for a really successful technician. Man, you've showed that tremendously this year. I think guys are going to listen to this podcast and your phone's going to be blowing up this year. I mean, I'm just telling you the truth because I know that there's not a lot of guys like you out there. I mean, I think there are guys out there, but if you're a shop owner and you're looking for a guy to plug into your team, you know, there's a big vetting process, and you don't want to just trust anybody. And there's not a lot of people that I would say you could hand them the keys to your shop, and like hand Tony the keys to your shop, and it would be in good hands. There's a lot of trust that goes into that, and it's just guys. I mean, it's very common for their guys to not have their life in order, their finances in order, or whatever that is, and they bring the drama to the job site, and next thing you know, it's out of control, and you know, you don't do any of that stuff. You come ready to work, and that's all you do.
That is one of my guilty pleasures. Is I have this janitor keychain, and I collect these keys as like, thanks, man, to allow that kind of trust for me to just come and go as I need to. Yeah, you know, and they're not labeled. I mean, I just have certain codes where if someone stole the keys, they're not going to be able to get into your shop. Yeah, you know, but it's a very flattering feeling. You know, and I try to be an asset to any team. You know, if I don't have the skill set for the damage, I'll do what I can. But in the meantime, I'm not just going to sit there complaining about breakfast until lunch. I'll clean up. I'll go get lunch. What do you need me to do to make sure we all win together? Because it's not just about me. You know, I want to be making sure that the whole play is executed correctly so the shop wins. And that's such a weird thing for people to hear. But if the shop wins, we all win. You know? Yeah.
Jeremy Netto says, Tony, we had to push you out of the way to be able to get a turn to work at back-to-back toy drives. Where does your energy and passion come from? Have you always been a beast, or did PDR awaken this?
You should see me.
Think
See me on a shrimp boat.
Yeah, I think we answered that question pretty thoroughly.
Yes.
I think there a lot could. For a long time, I was fueled by the fear of failure. Right, and it was crippling. And a lot of people are fueled by success. Right, but I've did that, and that view kind of sucked. I really enjoy doing something that not many people can do, and that has to be earned. It can't just be done.
Yeah.
It's kind of like respect. You know, you just don't hand out respect. It really has to be earned. So I find high value in things like that. And so I feel like those are really rewarding to me at this stage in the game for me.
This next one is, you've probably mostly already answered this, but I just want to see what you'll say. Andy Patrick asks, what's your take on the PDR industry as a whole compared to other fields that you've been in? Have you noticed how tight-knit the PDR industry is compared to other industries?
I don't think I have the experience as like a newbie to come in and gauge, you know, the PDR industry as a whole. Like, I can give my opinion, but I don't think that's very valid or fair. The PDR community, one of the things that attracts me is how tight-knit it is. You know, I mean, I regret not being part of the Dent community in the early 2000s with all you guys. Man, if there was a time machine, like, send me back. You know, I remember there being such a good culture. I was just doing something else. So, you know, I kind of envy stuff like that, you know, because that really goes into enjoying what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have one thing. It seems like you were hustling, but you weren't really getting traction in your life. And it seemed like from your way you told the story, once you met your wife, it really seems like everything, you kind of got traction with things. Is that kind of true? Like, seems like she brings something to the table for you?
More than one. No, and, you know, all joking aside, behind every successful man is a loving and supporting wife. You know, I couldn't do that without her. I mean, with the previous business, she was the secret behind my success. Like, I basically printed the money and she bagged it. You know, all the admin stuff, she took it off my plate. All I had to do was just keep my head down and do what I know I could do. And, you know, when people say marriage is 50-50, that's a lie. If you're only willing to give 50%, then you're not holding your end of the bargain. Sometimes it's 90-10. You know, sometimes it's 20-80.
I think it's 100-100.
Yeah. Yeah. You know? So
I mean, you got to give 100%, and she's got to be 100%.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it takes to be successful.
And I mean, I married an amazing woman who, you know, has been my biggest fan for 20-something years. You know, and I don't think I give her enough credit, but I mean, she'd never had to work a day in her life. You're welcome. She knows I'm joking. But, you know, it's interesting how that concept, you know, you get married, you're all butterflies and rainbows, love is in the air, and then you have kids, and you're like, I never thought I could love anything this deeply. And then your wife kind of takes a back seat, but she's your hero because she birthed these monsters, and she's doing everything to nurture them, which you don't have the capability to nurture. And you watch this develop, and then you go into this roommate stage where, you know, 10 years in, you're just high-fiving because life's so busy. And then where I feel like, you know, we entered this next stage of, I desperately and deeply want to get to know you again, because I don't think we really know who each other are. So much has happened in 20 years, and we've been in the fast lane. You know, so I look forward to these years of, like, doing whatever. You know, if we travel and do hail, like, this is our time to see the world as ourselves. And hey, underwear is optional. You know?
Okay.
So, you know, it's no, absolutely. Absolutely.
We're over 3 hours.
Sorry, man.
No.
No. Anything you want to talk about that we didn't hit or anything?
Yeah. This podcast has been brought to you by Mountain Ops Greens and Reds. So, no.
This is Tony's signature right here.
There you go. That's where the magic happens.
He just placed a gallon jug of what looks like river water,
That came off the shrimp boat. That's where that
and he has this thing with him at all times.
I can't believe we've been talking for that long, and I apologize if I feel like it feels like you look at your kids. My son's driving now. I'm like, I thought you were just born. I know
These go really fast.
It does. It
And
does.
especially when they're good, man. Yours was really good. I mean, it's great content, great story. Yeah, man. There's a lot there, and I'm so glad you came on. I'm so glad we're friends tremendously. I'm super excited to see what you're gonna do. I'm super excited for MTE. That's coming up right around the corner.
It's gonna be fun.
Tony's gonna be in the booth helping out as usual. So come by and meet him and shake his hand and invite him on your next tail gig if you need someone who you can trust. He's your guy.
Tony, how can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you?
Ooh. It's not a good time for your mom joke, huh?
The type of people that listen to this, it is always
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, it's all
at my mom's house. Okay, got it.
Oh gosh. I guess just by a phone call. Ace of Spades PDR. I'm a pretty low key guy.
Do you have a website?
No.
Okay. Do you have an email?
Yep.
Okay, it's what?
Tony at Ace of Spades. Oh, that's a great question.
He doesn't know, is he?
Just message him on Instagram. Ace of Spades PDR on Instagram.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we'll try to figure it out and put it in the notes.
Yeah, it's not like because I'm incompetent. It's just like my previous business, no names, name, logo on the truck, no
this is
email,
all
no
new to
phone
you.
number, because it's like I only
You don't want people to call. Yeah,
they're not. I'm not in the business for price chopping. It was just the clients who
Message me. I'll put you in contact with him.
There you go. Thanks, guys. No, in all sincerity, thanks so much for the platform, the opportunity, and like I said, whatever mediocre or minimal success that I've had is attributed to guys like you who put the time, effort, and energy into me, in a high level of accountability where I didn't want that to go in vain.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's out of respect to you guys. So I appreciate that.
Of course. Of course.
Matt, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, locally, they can find me at All Out Paintless Dent Rule, Jacksonville, Florida. They want their dent
All
stick.
out PDRJax.com.
alloutpdrjax.com, of course. Or the Dent Slayer,
Dentslayer.com.
dentslayer.com. You can find tools, training, and the podcast through there. You can Dent Slayer on Instagram. You can message me on there. But if you go to the dentslayer.com, there's a better funnel for connecting through there. There's a contact us page, and you can contact me through that. That's probably the best way. James?
Probably just go to dentslayer.com and email us there.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody. Well, I'm not going to say who, but someone else with a course out there that's saying that they're willing to put their course on our platform. So that thing is going to keep growing. Dentslayer online training.
Yeah, not just our training, but other
Yes.
trainers who are putting their courses on our platform and making those available to you guys. So please stay tuned to that. Look for those coming. We'll be at MTE talking about this too. If guys want to come by the booth and get information about this, and or if you're a trainer and you want to make it available, please come by and talk to us there. We just believe a rising tide lifts all boats. That's all we're trying to do.
Nautical theme.
Yeah.
Nautical themed podcast today.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the butter knife real quick?
Yeah, real quick. Let me grab it.
All right, Matt's reaching behind him, grabbing the butter knife tool.
All right. So this will be hard to see on camera, but it's just a straight 3/8 tool. I believe this is like 32 inches. It is shaved down. The last 6 inches starts to shave, and it shaves to a pretty sharp blade tip, like a butter knife. You can make it out on the camera or not, but you can check it out online, and there's some more detailed photos of it. But this is bendable, so you can bend it all the way through the tool, and it's made to essentially be like a whale tail. So you're gonna work it like a whale tail up in the seam of a door or the seam of a panel where it gets glue, and there's all kind of seam sealer up in there, and the damage extends over into that area, and no other tool works. And if you put a whale tail in there, it gets really dangerous really quick because whale tails are so sharp, and you can get into deep waters pretty quick. So we made this tool that is just a constant round, soft shape that you can just heat up, burn into that glue, and it's a very powerful, essentially whale tail, but very soft because like I said, it gets very, very dangerous in that area. So this is the butter knife, and it's pretty cool. You're not going to use it every day, but no other tool that I know exists that does what this will do when you need it. So we'll have these at MTE if you want to come by and grab them. I think they sold out last year at MTE.
I think so.
Yeah, but they should be available. So check it out.
All right. Marcio, thank you very much, sir. Marcio with Easy For You Media.
Yeah, he's our
You can
producer.
reach him. Where can they find you? easyforyoumedia.com?
Yes.
Boom.
Nice.
That's the letter EZ, 4, the number 4, U, the letter U, media.com. Boom. Good job, fellas.
Yep. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for
Another
watching or listening.
Rockstar episode. So cool.
Good job.
See you guys, MT.
The Dent Slayer, Matt Boyette. Thank you so much for being here.
She's smooth.